This is a knockout tournament between the future top swordsmen of the Cardenas family, and among all of them, one guy clearly stands out. He's already crushed dozens of his brothers, and now he's facing a girl who can barely keep up. She struggles to parry his strikes, loses her footing, and quickly realizes the truth. Her brother is on a completely different level. She can't read a single move, and just like everyone before her, she loses. At the end, he coldly tells her she never stood a chance. To him, everyone here is weak, unworthy of carrying the family name. Watching from above, the senior Swordmasters are impressed. This year's generation is strong, but one name stands above the rest: William. He's considered the top heir. Even the second and fourth strongest fighters couldn't beat him together. And honestly, it's no surprise. William comes from the direct bloodline, the purest lineage of the family. In terms of talent, no one can compare. And the branch families? They're simply born inferior. At least that's what everyone believes. The crowd is already ready to declare William the next head of the family. But then, the current family head steps in. He tells them to wait, because there's someone else who caught his attention: Leonard. In just a few days, he climbed from rank 381 to the top 25, without losing a single match. And unlike William, he's from a branch family. That alone makes his rise insane. After all, the Cardenas family is known as the strongest sword clan, home to 7 knighthoods. And the most elite of them all, the Golden Dragon Knighthood, is made up of direct descendants, warriors said to carry dragon blood, born with golden eyes and blonde hair. And now, the two finally face each other. William steps forward with a smirk, mocking Leonard like he's already come here to surrender. But he's not going to hold back, not even a little. As a powerful aura erupts around him, William makes it clear he's about to teach Leonard what happens when someone from a branch dares to challenge the direct bloodline. Their fight takes off in an epic exchange of skill and strength, swords clashing against one another. Despite being the best among the Cardenas trainees, William is merely getting toyed around. Leonard doesn't even attack him, and primarily dodges. It's almost as if Leonard is being channeled by the spirit of a stronger, more capable swordmaster. Their fight rages on with epic exchanges, gaining the attention of the instructors, who are shocked by Leonard's unique fighting style. William taunts his opponent for being best at running away. Leonard continues his evading maneuvers and lunges back with golden aura. The #1 elite ranker tries to use his aura blade, only for our boy to dodge them too, praising William for being impressive. He's dog-walking William like he's an amateur, all the while not even breaking a sweat, as Leonard understands that his opponent lacks something fundamental. He lacks the judgment one cultivates at the time of experiencing death, so he closes the gap between them instantly, humiliating William for having reached his limit. The spectators watching express their shock. It's as if Leonard is a completely different person playing around with his food, making the king of the trainees lose his cool. Instead of letting it drag on, Leonard ends this guy's misery by rendering a critical slash, knocking him out cold with only a single counterattack. Though this kind of ability would have been impossible for the old him, he has finally retrieved all his memories. Because you see, this man is the living reincarnation of the once mighty Sword Emperor Ren, whose sword knew no equal. Hailed as the strongest sword emperor, Ren walked the way of the sword, slaughtering the heavens with a cut of his blade, reaching a level where one cut could annihilate mountains, granting him the title of the Sword Emperor with his own blade. But even reaching those heights couldn't satisfy this man, until he challenged the heavenly demon himself, believed to be the strongest being of their era. In other words, this is just Gojo versus Sukuna, but with swords. The epic fight went on for days on end. Ren had to push himself to limits never seen before, surpassing the bounds of humanity. And the same fight managed to alter the very map of the region in which it occurred. By the end of the battle, Samurai Gojo Satoru found himself exhausted, and under the blood-red infinite Tsukuyomi night sky, the heavenly demon stood tall over him. Ren was panting for his life, questioning how the hell he couldn't win this fight when his swordsmanship had already reached perfection. That question of why always bothered him, because all this time, even after fighting for days on end, the Sword Emperor couldn't even cut the heavenly demon once. Responding with glee, the untouchable heavenly demon explained that Ren had his fundamentals messed up, taunting him for never really understanding the function of the sword. The man had simply challenged him, staking his own life on the line, so even in the heavenly demon's eyes, Ren appeared to be magnificent, which is literally the same thing Sukuna said to Gojo, by the way. Anyway, the Sword Emperor's inexperience and lack of understanding of his blade became the very cause of his own demise. The suggestion that a man like him, the Sword Emperor, lacked the fundamentals, is straight up trash talk in Ren's eyes. It seems like condescension, but truly, the heavenly demon can only remember Ren has a pathetic stray dog to try and challenge him to such limits. What's more, is that the heavenly demon strongly believed that with this pathetic defeat of the Sword Emperor, he will be remembered as a loser as his final legacy. Damn, is it me or is bro genuinely slicing him up with that S-tier rage bait right now? The heavenly demon left him to die, once more taunting him as the so-called Sword Emperor of the world. It's not like Ren could do anything either. Bro just collapsed on his ass, realizing how everything ended so quick and easy for him. Feeling utterly disrespected and regretful of the way he swung his sword, he wished for a second chance, a reality where he could change the outcome of this match, wondering if that would allow him to cut the heavenly demon. And that's how the legacy of the Sword Emperor Ren ended. One symbolized as the ultimate defeat, but also, at the same time, a new legend was born and replaced the old one in an unexpected turn of events. The next time he opened his eyes, the man was inside the Cardenas family training program. Leonard frantically woke up on the ground wearing number 381 as his starting position. Ren had just taken over his body. Startled what the hell happened or why he kept remembering the same dream again. His buddies were really worried this time, thinking that this dude might have actually kicked the bucket for real, while Leonard continued to remain in shock, as if he was missing a part of himself he didn't know about. Their fight resumed from the part where they left off. One dude charged a heavy punch against him, hoping to get at least some payback for the jump scare he left them with. Our boy didn't even think about his next move and simply reacted on pure reflex, catching the punch before it could even reach his face. The sudden catch stunned not only his opponent, but also the rest of the dudes. Even Leonard couldn't comprehend at the time why his body began to react the way it did. He hadn't even conjured a thought. Bro got mastered Ultra Instinct from Goku for free. With the punch still caught in his hands, the other guy decided to take serious measures and whipped out his wooden sword. He wanted to humble the kid who he thought caught the punch over a fluke, so he raised his weapon up high and began swinging it at him. Our boy evaded the first swing with a casual weave, shocking the kid once more, proving that the reflexes aren't just for show. Even now, Leonard couldn't believe that his body was reacting on its own, as if he wasn't even controlling it. Retaliating accordingly, our boy used his own blade and decided to tear this dude apart by hitting him in the abdomen. The attack was so brutal that it knocked Lil Bro out on the ground with a stinging pain. The rest of the dudes quickly realized that this isn't just a fluke, and instead began thinking that maybe this blonde was intentionally messing around with them the first time. The current Leonard brimmed with insane power. The same kid who couldn't even fight back earlier has now transformed into a completely different person. The other batchmates were freaking out, but one of them tried to muster some courage, questioning what's so special about our boy, when they're the ones beating him to a sorry pulp earlier. Dragging his blade out, both of them decided to double team and jump him Jujutsu Kaisen style. Watching these guys dish it out against him, Leonard realized what was going on. He had played these games before. It was here that he remembered the portion of his memories from his time as Sword Emperor Ren, and now that he had total control, my man started flexing with a serious kick to one dude's stomach, followed by another aerial swing and slash on the other guy, which may or may not have actually killed him, to be honest. Leonard did what he needed to do, and took care of these imbeciles, recalling how he'd always had these same weird dreams. Dreams of a man boasting luscious long hair under the crimson sky wielding his sword. All this time he felt pressured and tortured by those same dreams, causing him an identity crisis to the point training felt like a pain. But after all this time, he finally understands what's going on. The same man who he keeps dreaming about, and the one whose memories appear inescapable to him, is Sword Emperor Ren from a different world. And he's the reincarnation of Ren, thrown over here in this world thanks to Truck Kun booking him a ticket to a different body. Leonard finds it really difficult to believe that reincarnation is actually real, questioning if his final wish as Ren actually reached the heavens, allowing him this second chance. Though an air of frustration looms over him, because his body is practically sore just from swinging his weapon, showcasing that he's physically inexperienced right now. It's also because the current Leonard has been training the way of the Cardenas style, but from now on, he'll be correcting that by altering his swordsmanship method. Thanks to his in-depth knowledge of his previous life's techniques, Leonard intends to create a boundless ceiling of strength for himself, not caring about the person who helped his reincarnation dream come true. The old him, the most revered Sword Emperor, couldn't achieve those dreams, but now as Leonard Cardenas, he will carve open a different future, deploying everything to his advantage to become the strongest Sword Emperor in this world, surpassing even his old legacy. That whole motivational monologue aside, we're cut back to the training grounds of the Cardenas family. It is reported that 3 kids are so terribly injured that they're regarded as useless for field training from now on. All of the top rankers and direct descendants don't really care much about the students they lost, believing it won't dent their strength, and that field training should continue without trouble. Oh, but that's the interesting part, because when these guys learn that the boy responsible for taking 3 students down is actually number 381, they're shocked. Even more is the fact that he defeated them all alone. The ranks of the students he beat are also brought up: 329, 257, and 133. All of them should be far more powerful than someone like Leonard, so it boggles them how a completely useless student managed to stomp them into the ground. After all, if a talented boy like that slipped out to ally himself with another faction, the dynamics would shift considerably. The kid who brings up this point is quickly humbled by William, who grazes his face for speaking something so vile. The number 1 ranker has a thin ego and refuses to give a damn about some low-life trash. After hearing about 381's performance, William orders his men to string together a group and forcibly drag Leonard all the way here, possessing a desire to see for himself if the kid is truly that special to them. We get another flashback sequence from the Heavenly Demon battle. The man decided to leave a few notes for the dying emperor in case he ever had the fortune of being reincarnated. He talked down on Ren's inability to reach higher realms, merely because Ren developed his foundation of the internal arts much later than he should have. Of the 5 elements, the foundation and one's balance for them remain crucially important, and if only he had cultivated that foundation at a younger age, things would have been far different. This is a critical piece of advice that Ren held on to, and now that he's reincarnated as Leonard, his ultimate priority is to build his foundation at an early age. This is demonstrated while he's exercising meditation. If he could kickstart the development of his foundation at his young age instead of his prime, reality will be far different. Our boy's first objective is to create a constitution or a vessel that can handle mana right now. His deep concentration is evident as pillars of mana swirl around him, and it actually bore results because Leonard succeeds without struggle. Back in his time as Ren, he struggled far too much with managing his internal power, which only makes him question what kind of overpowered family the Cardenas bloodline is for making it look so easy. The scene shifts to the cafeteria hall where students are collecting food. Leonard chows down and enjoys his meal, finding it a luxurious taste. Diet is one of the most important aspects of one's growth periods, so he doesn't intend on holding himself back from any meals. Out of nowhere, Bro's number is called like he's some kind of prison inmate, and a humongous fatty looms behind him. Big Mac Attack comments on the fight Leonard had yesterday, questioning if the boy is more hot-headed than he lets on. And even though the scrawny blonde typically eats like a bird, right now he's devouring the whole meal like an elephant. Speaking of an elephant, the elephant over here is actually ranked number 7 now. Previously, he was sitting at 8. It really surprises me how this dude could get into top 10 ranking. Bro's even flexing how he managed to seize the position the other day, which confirms to Leonard that higher positions can be seized through battles. Aside from that, he asks the blob what he wants. Rank number 7 assures him that he's got something cautious to share, expressing how the atmosphere all around has been nothing but brutal as of late. The highest ranking students are making big moves to expand each of their influence. Number 1, 2, and 4 are hyperactive most notably. But this isn't anything new to our boy, who gets up and confirms that he already knows. Blonde hair and golden eyes typically signify the direct descendants of the Cardenas family anyway. He speaks a bit casually, and though Fatty looks like a brute, he actually wants Leonard to be cautious as people around are watching closely. Our boy doesn't want to hear a lame essay and demands him to just get to his point. Number 7 is starting to think that this dude has definitely gone crazy for acting so different as of late. Frustrated, Number 7 roars that there's a huge deal why these top rankers are running on expansions lately. The point is that low rankers won't survive without unity. Again, Leonard doesn't get the point of all this or where this is going, so the 7th ranker further shares that more than 50 people have already surrendered to the influence of the top rankers. After all, there's no rule restricting direct descendants from forming groups or factions of their own. And now for the main point. Apparently rank number 3 is actually intent on building a faction of his own alongside 7 and 9, and he's here to extend the invitation to Leonard to help them. Completely expected, our boy slams a heavy refusal, assuring that he doesn't belong in any group, but he's very happy to know what's going on, as it will help him later on. Number 7 is genuinely starstruck how this guy intends on surviving on his own, because refusing an offer like this sounds ridiculous for his rank. Ignoring his stinky breath, Leonard goes outside to catch some fresh air before running into another unexpected encounter. 2 students greet him with mockery, questioning if they enjoyed his meal. These 2 are notably high on the list of rankers, and the duo is here to forcibly seize the boy, asserting that their leader, Lord Number 1, is actually interested in seeing Leonard. Acting arrogant, the fucker stats that he's doing a favor by forgiving him for the incident. And since the boy already refused Sevni's invitation, Lord 1 is interested in seeing Leonard all the more. The crazy thing is how quickly news already got to William's ears, because just a while ago, Leonard was having a chat with his buddy. Even though this whole deal seems like a petty children's argument, Leonard finds it pretty complicated in this family. Again, bro's just too cool for these kids and tells them to piss off because he's not interested. That diva energy doesn't do him any favors because these guys come charging full speed to forcibly make him submit, treating him like a lowly ranker. Leonard simply stands there menacingly while asserting his dominance, and within seconds dashes right into the first guy, weaving the first hit to prepare a punch. With their distance inches apart, our boy readies his hit and brutally renders a cross attack barehanded. His opponent is baffled how this demon is literally not even using his sword to fight them. Oh, and by the way, Leonard's previous hit already deflected this guy's sword, shattering it. Now that he's left wide open, bro goes in for the killer punch, slamming his fist in this dude's gut, causing his ranker badge to fly loose. Even though the kid isn't a top ranker, our boy is still impressed that he has decent skill, which shows promise in the legacy of the Cardenas bloodline. Leonard looks down at the other guy, taunting him for not understanding the fact that they're outmatched against him. Instead of backing out, the other dude thinks he's still gonna win anyways because bro's a few ranks higher than the homie that was just down. You see, he's ranked 98 on the leaderboard. Leonard is really curious to see how he'll end up, so he goes for the speed offensive by teleporting right behind his back. This dude is utterly left helpless because before he could even turn around, the fight ends, knocking his shitty badge on the ground. At the time of this fight, one dude is observing everything from the window, shocked that the kid is practically toying with people much higher on the list. It makes him wonder if Leonard intentionally hid his strength all this time, even though the boy's background seems so clear. Oh, and by the way, our boy is so perceptive that he managed to lock direct eye contact with this weasel, a way to warn him that he knows he's being watched. The observer of the Fugurao trainees quickly jots down his notes, reflecting that there may be a few upsets this year around. He scribbles notes on 381's file and hopes for the boy to prove him with his worth in the future. Oh, and by the way, now that he's annihilated number 98, Leonard's new ranking is officially under 100. The fight caused a commotion, causing several students to chase after number 98's arrival at the training grounds. Most of number 1's lackeys are rushing to find this guy and capture him, while they bump into number 2 along the way. The woman is shocked that there's so much hype and desperation around this Leonard figure, that he's amazing and has been creating waves among the ranks. This is Verita Cardenas, the second behind William. She goes up to the training grounds shortly after this incident, only to discover that every person that number 1 sent to take down the new 98 is already down. She thinks perhaps Leonard beat only one of them, until a guy flung in her direction, knocking the hell out from a distance. Meanwhile, our boy is chilling out here. Another guy tries to flank him from behind, begging him to stop being so difficult and just join their group already. Leonard reiterates his answer. He refuses to serve someone who is as stupid as the current number 1. Bro is literally playing it easy, messing around with rank number 25 as if it's no big deal. Having scored another sweeping victory, Leonard takes the badge of the 25th and claims his new position. Seizing her opportunity to spark a conversation with him, Verita congratulates the young talent for being promoted. Leonard questions if she's one of them, to which she declines and emphasizes that she can merely sense the ever-flowing constitution inside his body. It's magnetic and pulsing with flowing energy, making it easy to explain how he got that rank. Our boy finds her sensory abilities quite interesting, questioning if she's got some kind of clairvoyance to her arsenal. Because if she can sense this kind of energy, then Verita must at least possess some kind of mind's eye trait. The mind's eye allows a person to detect and appraise someone's talent, making it an excellent scanning tool against higher-level opponents. It's a powerful trait, no doubt helping cement her position as rank 2. Meanwhile, she's just confused why he's hell-bent on refusing any group participation, arguing that it's going to be impossible to handle training all alone. By the way, the man himself, William, shows up to their little encounter, believing that it's traitorous of Verita to leak confidential information. This is the man who's been causing problems for our boy. William treats his underlings like worthless pieces of trash who couldn't even manage basic tasks like this. As for our boy, the one notable thing he finds about William is how the number 1 ranking boasts an incredible presence. Leonard goes up to have a proper standoff against this man. He'd been curious all this time about what made the number 1 ranker so special. Showing no fear, Leonard even challenges him to a duel here and now, an invitation that pisses William off because this guy is treating him like a joke. The scene causes Verita to laugh uncontrollably, finding the audacity of this newbie really interesting, especially when he's got the balls to say something like that to a direct descendant of the family. Verita makes it ultimately clear that number 25 doesn't intend on having an allegiance with any faction for their training session. William can see that and affirms the same. He just came here to personally see what's so special about the kid. The top ranker leaves with a threatening remark, emphasizing that Leonard will soon come to regret trying to provoke him. Our boy basically pulls a Saitama okay face because he doesn't really care. What's important to him is the knowledge that there's certain information only these descendants possess, that there's some kind of hidden training where faction creation is involved. This paints the picture that there's going to be some kind of joint training event tomorrow. In the next scene, we come across senior instructor Bruno, who asks to confirm if the trainees are all gathered. His subordinate assures him that everything is clear, except the arrival of an unusual ranker. The senior instructor is intrigued with this sudden change and inquires for more details, so his subordinate shares that the new kid is training alone without any intentions of taking part in a group. Bruno finds it really strange for someone to take reckless means, even though the point of the field exercise is specifically to conduct a test in the great forest of the Cardenas family. This same training requires the gathering of food and shelter to become self-sufficient in one's ability. The rankers were also detailed on a limit on faction size, which led to the creation of 4 factions in total. The largest and strongest group is led by William, the number 1 talent, and the second largest group is paired with Verita. Squad C is actually made up of trainees that don't have direct ties to the family, and finally, Squad 4 intends to function on strategic maneuvers. Oh, there's also a final Squad E, led by someone who gathered everyone that was left, the ones who couldn't find a group to join. All the other factions aside, there's the solo existence of Leonard Cardenas, the kid who is hell-bent on acting alone, as his own Squad F. Our boy observes the state of the training grounds. The play area is immensely vast, and in order to take complete advantage of this environment, his priority is to build an early base. Suddenly, the senior instructor comes up personally to meet with the young candidate, questioning if that's all the luggage he intends to pack. After all, the boy hasn't prepared anything more than water and biscuits, which makes Bruno question if the kid is being naive in his approach. Our boy assures the instructor that he'll be fine, because the whole point of this training is to become self-sufficient after all. You see, the self-sufficient part of the program is a false cover. The real purpose underneath is to create a setting where players can steal each other's badges and prove their worth. A third person joins the conversation, intending to speak with number 25 in private, arguing that venturing in the forest alone is ridiculously dangerous for anyone. So the calculated and strategic mind of Squad D has come here for a formal proposal, requesting Leonard to join their part. Dylan Cardenas thinks he's some hot shit, but our boy has the same response for him as he did with everyone else, to basically fuck off. You see, our boy can sense that this slimeball is one of those snakes who act nice at the front but will feel no trouble cutting you down later on. Dylan pushes forward, arguing that everyone else has formed enormous factions, so it doesn't really seem like a bad offer to accommodate Leonard into a group either. Our boy humbles his high horse, assuring the kid that he doesn't owe anyone an explanation for playing single, and that he won't be accompanying Squad D on their little picnic session. The remark rage baits the shit out of Dylan, who can finally understand why even someone as powerful as number 1 despises Leonard of all, and to Dylan, this is a dangerous way to live in their family. The squad leader assures him that Leonard won't submit with their chat, so perhaps he has to teach a lesson in humility through combat to gain an advantage. Without wasting a breath, this guy charges full speed, flash-stepping from spot to spot to attack Leonard and force him to join the squad. The hit that was supposed to land on our boy ends up wiping a bunch of dust and throwing Lil Bro off balance instead. This dude is stunned how Leonard managed to dodge that hit, while our boy merely flanks him, calling his footwork terrible. That said, my guy obliterates the scumbag with the special technique called unlimited sword backshots. Interestingly, the fainting Dylan reflects that he didn't sense any kind of killing intent from his opponent when he swung his sword, which makes him wonder if this kid has already become some kind of John Wick-level assassin at this age. The attack knocks him to the ground, lights out for Dylan, while senior instructor Bruno is pretty impressed, praising the boy for his smooth moves. At the same time, he explains that Leonard's promotion won't count before the match, and that it's best for him to depart for the test already. Having no qualms against the instructor's words, Leonard senses just how powerful his teacher is for concealing his presence like that too. The craziest part? Bro thinks that even if he was the Sword Emperor Ren from his previous life, he'd still find it a struggling battle to face against someone of Bruno's caliber. All of these recent observations make it very clear that the Cardenas family is truly the greatest Swordmaster clan to exist. Even at such a young age, they've crafted outstanding talent, popping one prodigy after another, which means there has to be some kind of secret dwelling within their bloodline. Disregarding that mysterious secret, Leonard bolts ahead to continue on with the training test, hoping to secure his advantageous hideout firsthand. Out in the field, number 25 is making huge waves. Instructor Bruno wants an in-depth read of the situation and learns about some kind of early-based clash. Apparently, William's group attacked Squad C the moment they entered the forest without caring about building a base. Squad C was demolished as a consequence because they did not expect this turn of events. Their leader, number 3, managed to narrowly escape while the rest of the squad was demolished. This strategy impresses Bruno because it's clear that number 1 is just as sharp as he is strong. There's a proper difference among their ranks. Instructor Bruno also reflects that William thought strategically with Group A's overwhelming numbers, thinking that it would be a problem to gather early supplies. That's why he used that very numerical overflow to create a powerful attack, shattering the expectations of Class C and leading an early assault. This cooked the whole team, and it wasn't just a display of strength but an outsmarting strategy. Next, Bruno asks for updates on Squad B and D. Apparently C, B, and D have conjoined together for an alliance, since they share the common goal of kicking number 1's ass. It's a good decision to rally their forces. The intelligent play here is promising in Bruno's eyes. Next, he asks about the young lady who is supposed to govern the remaining groups. Instructor Colin is asked for her side of updates. She knows that Group E hasn't made significant progress, but the most interesting report comes from the solo player from Group F. Colin doesn't even know where to spot, because you see, Bro actually noticed her presence and called out to her name. Colin's concealment technique, the same one revered as the highest among all the instructors, fell through against this young boy. Leonard addressed her directly and wanted to ask a question, while she was stunned and felt boggled by the kid's ability to detect her. Descending from her position, Colin came up to assist the boy with his question. Leonard explains the situation up ahead, expressing how this cave out here seems to have a beast as a master, but he wants to use it as a sleeping camp for himself. His question is to know if the beast residing here is personally tamed by the Cardenas family, because he didn't just want to recklessly slaughter it without question. Also, the beast is revealed to be a gorgeous azure wolf, and Colin can see right away that it's actually a dire wolf properly trained by the Cardenas family. At the same time, she doesn't have any expectations of a typical trainee to try and best a dire wolf by himself. Intrigued by the limitations of this young boy, Colin decides to let it slide and intends to intervene in case the boy requires her help. She encouraged him to his face, stating that it's a part of the training, and that if defeated the creature, he can capably use its home as a sleeping or food storage position. Of course, Colin doesn't really think Leonard is capable of defeating the wolf in the first place. The monster growls before raging on for the first strike, putting our boy in a defense maneuver, praising the animal for its precise movements. He doesn't stop the shit talk and assures that he'll go easy. So what bro does is literally slam a punch in the creature's belly instead of cutting it down, believing that it's going to earn him a great sleeping position. The dire wolf winces like a puppy before backing off. A mere trainee has intimidated the creature, causing it to position itself and release a ferocious roar. Leonard tries to comprehend the beast's action, wondering if it has lost its senses or perhaps even reason to fight. But if he himself holds himself back, it's possible that getting hurt will cause him and the instructor trouble. So this time, when Leonard dashes in, he has the intention of injuring the beast, and his quick maneuver actually smacks the best on its mouth. One small problem: it's not enough to take the wolf down and nearly results in our boy's arm getting chopped off. Bro refuses to go down at the hands of a shitty direwolf and retaliates with a knee nick straight to its mouth. Watching this one-sided beatdown, Colin is at a loss for words, realizing that this kid isn't in danger. He literally is the danger. At this point, the girl is wondering if she should save the wolf from the monstrous trainee. Anyway, the fight's over, and it rightfully earns our boy his new spot. Oh, but here's the funny bit. After defeating the direwolf so one-sidedly, he actually turns the thing into his cute little pet. One command to sit causes this thing to sit obediently, even roll on command too. These two have formed an excellent bond. Colin is out here questioning her eyeballs on what the hell just happened. She can't figure out how one trainee possesses so much decisiveness in his maneuvers, that someone like him managed to outdo a direwolf all by himself. She expresses that he tamed the monster as part of his abilities, so the bond is justified, except the wolf won't be allowed to be used in combat, but movement is fine. This makes things much more convenient for our boy, who assures the instructor that he won't be using it to cause any harm. Leonard regards one of his techniques to be rather useful, and decides to properly train his new. They go off together to find some food, but interestingly take notice of a sudden fork in the road, signifying the splitting of two groups. Our boy instructs the cute furball to grab anything on his side of the road if it's useful, and so they both scatter in different directions for resource hunting. That aside, we get a scene back to William, who has just obliterated another party, rearing himself as a literal monster on the battlefield. The #1 ranker frankly treats these lowlives as a bunch of shitty candidates in the family that are beyond saving. More than that, he's annoyed that they get to hold such badges, and assures the defeated victim that he'll properly eliminate the kid on their next encounter. Even an entire group of Group E collaborating against one man, jumping him from every direction, wasn't enough to beat him. In other words, William is that much of a god and these imbeciles never stood a chance. This guy thinks they're all shitty and that they've got nowhere to go. Though William spared them the first time, another attack could prove to be their death. The leader, despite his despair, tries to encourage his friends to pull themselves together so that they might have a chance to survive. Except that's when they all loom in terror, because just behind them is a pretty huge bear that isn't looking like he wants to be friends. They're about to become fresh meat, except their savior comes along in the form of the goat himself. Leonard dives and kills the bear with a single strike to its head, saving his friends. The Group E leader is starstruck that the solo operator number 25 came to save them. Despite being saved, this wimp calls him a heartless bastard who stole their food for days to come, but it's not like they ever stood a chance against the damn bear in the first place. Party E is already calling him a heartless monster, while Leonard greets them with respect and asks if they're all right. This makes them realize that he's actually nice, because my guy turns around feigning non-interest in taking their badges. Leonard only intervenes because he thought it was a difficult threat after all. He doesn't want to win here. It's part of his training to complete his resources and go off from there. If he actually wanted to win, then he'd be picking better opponents than this group. The leader of the group is impressed with his ability to climb the ranks and thinks he's owed by the ranker. He believes that it's a huge favor that he's sparing them, even though Leonard doesn't share any intention of making it seem like that. Suddenly, another lingering presence terrifies them, because from out of the forest emerges the same direwolf. These guys think they're about to get slaughtered, but it's funny when the direwolf acts like a puppy and returns with an interesting find. Our boy is confused because the person he's brought is actually the injured number 3. The state she's in is bad, but she can at least survive. While they're terrified of the direwolf, our boy is chilling around observing number 3's injuries, shocked that a fighter of her caliber could end up like this. He thinks it's probably the other rankers who got the best of her, so he asks if the leader of this group wants to truly live. To make sure they survive, Leonard offers a trade. He's happy to give them the bear to help them survive in the long run, and also leaves the advice for them to not get caught up in numbers senselessly. By the time he leaves the impression through his actions that Leonard is actually a pretty good person. In the next scene, number 3 wakes up, questioning where the hell she's at. She checks her arm. It's all patched up, which means someone offered critical treatment. A voice calls out to her, driving her to quickly get out and attack the person it's coming from. Our boy aura-farms by blocking the kick like it didn't even faze him, and is impressed that her leg's doing better. He urges her to rest up while she demands to take her badge. It's a little confusing because Leonard looks down at her chest, hinting that the badge is already there. This makes the girl flustered for her premature attack, and so she confesses her thanks for being saved, arguing that she won't be offering her badge. It's good because our boy never intended on taking it in the first place. He just wants her to chow down on this salivating meal and enjoy herself. The girl is moved by his generosity. Ren used to be an adult in his previous life, so he feels like it's a responsibility to feed any kid at any point. He then asks about how she got those injuries in the first place. The girl declines running into monsters. A furious expression takes over her, because she explains how they were ambushed by William's group shortly after setting up base. The game was over for them before it even began. The fight was a one-sided massacre, and not even a number 3 ranker could do anything to stop it. I mean, Leonard understands that it's easy to see how one side dominates the other. It's a game of numbers with different strategies involved. William played the cards well and deployed an ambush, and for youngsters who are green in combat and strategy, forming tactics is no easy feat. He also learns that the injured arm is thanks to number 1's doing too, because he's even more monstrously stronger than Verita at number 2. Our boy tries to comfort her by saying her squad simply lacked the strength to contest the opposing team, but she's frustrated that they didn't even get a chance to fight back. It impresses the former Sword Emperor that this little girl boasts incredible fighting spirit despite her devastating loss. This only goes to show that she'll end up becoming an incredible warrior in the future, but for now, things are looking bad, and Group B alongside D are destined to fall too. She thinks that it's possible for the rest to form an alliance, but Leonard argues that numerical superiority won't help them in this case either. Even if multiple alliances are formed, Squad A will simply amass more victories and win that way. Of course, there's also the chance that William foresees the alliance and already has a backup planned. It really shocks Leonard that these kids are out here deploying Ayanokoji levels of strategies just to outsmart each other. Our boy crafts a proper plan to target Willima's group's weak point. His goal is to put all forces to pressure number 1. After all, the squad circles around him, so if they can annihilate the main driving force, the core and pillar of the team, the rest will quickly disintegrate into an unorganized mob, leaving chaos for the largest faction. The good thing? This girl is already hell-bent on seeking revenge, so he asks her to trust him all the more on this plan. Despite her hesitation, she decides to declare him her squad leader, offering full subservience to his cause. The forest path is usually a quiet place, but today it is crowded with the heavy packs and disciplined formation of Squad A. Because they are the Academy's elite, an air of certain victory follows them as they march. William Cardenas, the top-ranked student, leads the group alongside a black-haired peer who advises him to stay patient. The elite student argues that as long as they maintain their current pace, the win is guaranteed, a sentiment William echoes by noting the results will be clear very soon. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. William senses a hidden presence nearby. He immediately signals for his troops to halt. Standing firmly on the path with his wooden training sword, our protagonist's rival addresses the forest. He acknowledges that hiding is a wise move for the weak, but suggests that surrendering is more prudent when there is no hope of winning. He demands that whoever is in the bushes show themselves. Responding to the taunt, Dylan Cardenas emerges calmly from the greenery with his squad. He is surprised that William noticed their presence, jokingly calling him a majestic lion with a sharp nose. Verita Cardenas walks up to join William's side, though she mocks Dylan by suggesting his nose is more like that of a dog. William looks down on the lower-ranked students with pure disdain, claiming those at the top can easily read the thoughts of the rabble. He insults Dylan's intelligence and expresses shock that someone of such a low level would dare to stand before him, calling him a stain on the family name. William turns his attention towards Verita, asking if she always enjoys acting so haughty. She simply draws her wooden blade with a smile, comparing William to a peacock rather than a dog. This insult causes William's temper to flare, and he points his weapon at her, claiming his attitude is simply the dignity she lacks as an incompetent woman. The tension breaks as both groups collide in a violent burst of speed. The impact of their wooden weapons is so intense it practically cracks the earth. Seeing an opportunity, a female senior from Squad E leads a secondary charge from the flank, ordering her units to annihilate Squad A. In response, Number 5 yells for his elites to tighten their defense and hold the line. The forest erupts into a massive chaotic melee as Squads F and E swarm the elite defense line in a frantic brawl. Within the chaos, Verita struggles to hold her own against William's overwhelming power. Every time she blocks, her wrists throb from the sheer weight of his blows. She tries to use her mind's eye to find a weakness, but William appears as a distorted, monstrous image that her special sight cannot process. He is simply too fast and too strong. With a single hand, the top-ranked student overpowers her weapon. Dylan tries to jump in from behind to save her, but William reacts instantly. He catches Dylan's sword with his bare hand, cracking the wood before delivering a brutal kick that sends Dylan flying. Verita sees William's back exposed after the kick and lunges forward, thinking she finally has an opening. However, she freezes midair when she notices his posture is too deliberate. She realizes too late that he left his back open on purpose to lure her in. William moves with blinding speed, striking her down before she can land her attack. He mocks her, noting that even her special eyes aren't perfect since her movements look slow to him compared to number 25. With a powerful final blow, he strikes her down to the ground. Standing over the kneeling Verita, William declares himself the winner of the training session. He tells her to admit defeat, as he believes no one can win against him. Just as he claims victory, a voice interrupts, calling his judgment premature. Leonard walks into the clearing, casually dragging the unconscious body of number 5 by the shirt. Verita is shocked to see him, but Leonard simply tosses the elite student at William's feet. William is stunned and demands to know what the boy he considers an inferior is doing there. Leonard explains that he is simply returning the favor for what William did to his squad. When William laughs and says Leonard shouldn't even have a squad, Leonard calmly explains that while he didn't have one at first, things have changed. A deafening roar echoes from the forest, drawing William's attention to the hill. A massive army of students from Squads F and E is charging down toward Squad A's position. Our hero explains that this is the rebellion of the people William deemed worthless. A flashback reveals how this happened. Earlier, Squad E had successfully hunted a giant wolf, which gave them the resources to survive. Leonard and number 3 approached the celebrating group to offer an alliance. Although the leader of Squad E felt they were too weak to help, Leonard challenged that mindset. He told them not to be bound by their rank numbers, as they all received the same rigorous Cardenas training. Leonard's logic is that since their growth speed is roughly the same, numbers are just name tags. He points out that while only a few people manifest unique traits, the base potential of most students is nearly identical. He uses himself and the blue-haired girl as examples, showing how she climbed up from a branch family and he crawled up from the bottom through sheer effort. He yells at the hesitant leader, explaining that their problem isn't a lack of strength, but a lack of courage and the heart to believe in themselves. By extending his hand in partnership, Leonard convinced them to join him in taking down number 1. Back in the present, number 3 stands on a rock and leads the charge, telling the students to seize victory for the sake of the man who believed in them. William is disgusted that she would team up with people he considers inferiors, but she shuts him down. She recalls how Leonard caught her kick with his bare hand and explains that his movements are far more refined than William's. She didn't team up with an inferior. She followed someone stronger. She points out that while William might be strong, his squad is currently being thrashed by her people. Seeing the tables turn, Verita starts laughing hysterically. She decides to surrender and asks to join Squad F instead. Dylan follows suit, dropping to one knee to show he would rather lose to Leonard than to William. Our protagonist Rival is left standing alone, fuming as his allies desert him. He tries to appeal to their family pride, but Leonard reminds him that everyone there carries the same blood. William's eye twitches with rage as he points his sword at Leonard, refusing to accept the situation. He demands a duel right then and there to prove the difference in their strength. Leonard doesn't flinch. He enters his own combat stance, with mana appearing around his blade. With a confident smile, he tells William to come at him, as he had intended to end the fight this way from the very beginning. Watching through a magical portal, the blonde commander wonders if the top-ranked student will hold his position, or if our rising star will turn the tables. As Leonard and his rival charge, the collision of their wooden swords creates a massive shockwave, signaling to the commander that he is witnessing the birth of a future captain. William immediately goes on the offensive, unleashing a barrage of heavy and rapid strikes that force our hero into a purely defensive stance. The sheer power of these hits is enough to exhaust anyone's arms just from blocking, but Leonard remains focused. As they trade blows, William internally mocks the boy, thinking his movements are too easy to read for someone of his status. However, William suddenly shifts his style, swinging from a distorted and unnatural angle that catches our protagonist by surprise. This unusual technique is exactly how William defeated the second-ranked student earlier, but as the fight continues, Leonard begins to adapt. The commander is impressed to see that our hero is actually seeing through these complex techniques in real time. It is a feat that even the higher-ranked elites couldn't manage, especially for someone without an innate trait. By analyzing the force behind each strike, Leonard realizes that his opponent isn't just relying on muscle. He deduces that William's secret trait is psychokinesis, an invisible power that allows him to put massive destructive force into swings from angles where a normal human shouldn't be able to generate power. Because of this invisible advantage, William is able to defy common sense, launching attacks that would catch even an experienced trainee off guard. When the two blades lock in a stalemate, William realizes our guy has figured out his secret. He is frustrated and demands to know why Leonard has been hiding such high-level strength all this time. Our protagonist doesn't give a verbal answer, choosing instead to let his sword work speak for him as a golden crest appears, symbolizing his readiness to fight like a true member of the House of the Sword Duke. In response, William escalates the fight by using his psychokinesis to launch long-range energy slashes. Leonard is momentarily shocked by the range of these attacks, acknowledging that the top rank wasn't just for show. As William prepares a massive aura of blue energy to finish the fight, our hero realizes that his current body is too weak to match that raw external power directly. He also knows he shouldn't draw too much attention by using his own forbidden techniques, so he decides the only solution is to rely on pure speed and precision to cut his rival down. Moving fast, Leonard dodges a strike that is powerful enough to shatter a tree. From the sidelines, Verita and Dylan watch in awe. Verita finally understands why she struggled so much against William earlier, realizing his invisible trait was masking his true movements. While Dylan initially thinks Leonard is just running away, the commander notices the truth. Our guy is actually cornering William on purpose, moving like a predator that is leisurely trapping its prey. Suddenly, Leonard appears deep within William's guard. Terrified by how quickly the distance was closed, William can only watch in shock as Leonard delivers a decisive blow that causes a massive explosion. The impact sends the top student flying through the air, coughing up blood. As he lies in the crater, William feels a sense of true lethality, seeing a spectral image of a reaper behind Leonard that represents his overwhelming killing intent. Eventually, our protagonist lowers his sword, and William admits defeat. While the other students are stunned into silence or complaining about lost bets, the atmosphere between the two rivals changes. William sits up and actually thanks Leonard. He explains that losing has finally freed him from the suffocating pressure of his father's expectations and his own obsession with being the strongest. He acknowledges it was a good match and shakes Leonard's hand in a sign of genuine respect. The commander concludes the field training, satisfied with what he calls a great harvest. He notes that Leonard was the only one who truly understood the purpose of the exercise, which was about leadership and strategy as much as combat. While the team marvels at how Leonard turned the lower-ranked squads into a winning army, the commander orders them to prepare for the return trip. He also instructs to contact the main house, declaring that it is finally time for the coming-of-age ceremony. Later, under the vast starlit sky, Leonard spends his final night in the forest, sharing a quiet moment with the giant blue wolf. He gently strokes the creature's nose, explaining that he has to leave the following day and cannot take the beast with him. Sensing the wolf's sadness, he offers a bittersweet smile and promises that this isn't a permanent goodbye. Since he intends to return once he is stronger, he encourages the wolf to grow powerful enough to keep up with his future journey. As he walks away, the wolf lets out a series of howls toward the full moon, and our protagonist resolves to finally give the creature a proper name when they eventually reunite. The scene transitions to the following day inside a moving carriage where the dynamic has shifted significantly. Despite their previous rivalry, William is now sitting with Leonard, while Dylan, Verita, and the girl number 3 occupy the opposite seats. The group is surprised to find themselves sharing a ride, but they explain their presence through a mix of curiosity and newfound respect. Verita admits she followed the star of the training session, while Dylan simply wanted to speak with the man who climbed from the bottom of the ranks to the very top. William, though clearly irritated by the chatter, has focused his attention entirely on Leonard to discuss the next phase of their education. With the field training over, the descendants of Cardenas must now undergo the blood awakening ceremony. William explains that their family possesses unique internal organs that normal humans lack, and the ceremony is a ritual designed to activate them. This revelation explains why their previous training was limited to basic subjects. The real work begins only after these organs are functional. Once awakened, these mana cores allow a person to manipulate energy with far greater freedom. This is also why the Academy banned external aids like spirit fruits or stones, as the focus must be on developing this internal power. The conversation reveals that upon completing this ceremony, the trainees will join the Young Dragon Knighthood. This is a specialized elite unit focused on real-world combat education and tailored curriculums for every student. Leonard is surprised to hear this, as the knighthood is not yet public knowledge. The elites explain that the mana cores differ from person to person in both attribute and number. While a single core is considered the absolute best due to its extreme training efficiency, Having more cores is seen as a massive burden. As every additional core requires exponentially more resources and focus to balance, a pentacore is viewed as the worst possible outcome, requiring 25 times the effort of a single core. Unfortunately, the ceremony reveals that Leonard is indeed a pentacore. While William prides himself on his rare single-core status, Leonard realizes that his path will be perceived as a failure by his peers. He internally laments that the world views his bloodline talent as a curse, even though his sword talent is unmatched. However, our hero sees this as a hidden opportunity. Drawing on knowledge from his past life regarding the 5 elements, he understands that if he can harmonize these 5 cores into a single flow, he can reach heights that even a single core user could never imagine. Despite the stigma surrounding his core count, Leonard's performance catches the eye of Commander Fabian of the Young Dragon Knighthood. When Leonard enters the Grand Hall, Fabian is immediately impressed by the boy's martial presence, noting that he has reached a high level of completion without even using aura. Leonard calmly argues that true martial arts are built with the heart and body rather than just raw energy, a sentiment that causes the commander to laugh with delight. Due to this impressive attitude and obvious skill, Fabian grants Leonard special grade status, insisting that talent matters more than core counts. As part of this special treatment, the commander gifts Leonard a spatial bag filled with supplies and grants him the rare right to choose his own training location. When our protagonist asks for the place best suited for his current level, Fabian directs him to Calabagos. This remote, rugged island is known as an untamed wilderness, so dangerous that even veteran knights often give up there. It is a place filled with demon-tier monsters and a brutal environment, but Leonard accepts the challenge with determined eyes. He knows that the difficulty of pentacore training is simply a matter of using the right method, and the isolation of the island is the perfect place to elevate his elemental cores in secret. The journey ends as Leonard steps through a magical portal and arrives in the dense forests of Calabogos. As he begins to navigate the giant trees with his supplies on his back, a mysterious black-haired man in a green cloak appears silently behind him. The man introduces himself as Bradley, a high-ranking senior knight from the Basilisk Squad. Leonard politely introduces himself, prompting Bradley to lead him deeper into the forest to a more suitable location. As they walk, Bradley explains that the island is populated by apprentice knights and advises the protagonist to show respect to his seniors, though he notes that a specific rule prevents these older students from interfering with first-year rookies. For this reason, Leonard realizes he doesn't necessarily need to be intimidated by the higher-ranking residents. Bradley eventually outlines the schedule for the coming year, explaining that the first 6 months will be a period of protection under his watch, while the latter half will transition into an official training period. After that, our hero will be expected to survive entirely on his own. Bradley leads the guy to a room built into a tree, noting that while he usually wouldn't provide housing, Leonard's special status earned him this accommodation. He clarifies that for everything else, such as food and supplies, Leonard must be self-sufficient by using spirit stones as currency. When our protagonist asks about the difference between the 2 periods, Bradley explains that the protection phase involves active support, while the training phase focuses primarily on keeping other students from attacking him. He also clarifies that while combat is expected, killing is strictly prohibited. Before Bradley leaves, Leonard asks for an appraisal of his provided resources. Upon checking the bag, Bradley is shocked to find 3,000 spirit stones and 100 elixirs for every attribute. He realizes that even for a top-ranked student, this is an incredible amount of wealth, suggesting that the commander is deeply invested in the boy's success. Bradley takes a moment to explain that spirit stones are mana-infused ores used to expand a cultivator's internal capacity. He notes that with this many resources, a single core user could reach the 10th stage, and even a pentacore user like Leonard should be able to hit the 5th stage. This leads into an educational breakdown of the 5 major realms of martial arts. The first is the body tempering realm, where mana is used to expand the internal whole. The second is the external power realm, which involves releasing tempered mana as aura. The third is the transcendence realm, where a fighter refines their unique individuality. The fourth is the demigod realm, allowing one's internal imagery to manifest in the physical world. Finally, there is the divine realm, a level of godhood only ever achieved by the family ancestor, Cardanus. Bradley becomes visibly frustrated at the mention of skeptics who doubt the ancestors' legends, calling them fools who would still be slaves if not for the ancestors' victory over the evil dragon. With the explanation finished, Bradley instructs our hero to begin his mana cultivation and leaves him alone in the room. Leonard picks up a stone and realizes that since the ambient mana on the island is so thick, the act of absorption shouldn't be too difficult. Fortunately, he is in luck as he already mastered these techniques in his previous life. Through his past experience, his progress is unnaturally fast. In just a few hours, his muscles begin to glow with heat as he reaches the 3rd stage of cultivation. He calculates that he could reach the 5th stage in a single day, but he worries that such rapid growth will look suspicious to the instructors. Initially, he considers hiding in the mountains to mask his progress, but he changes his mind. He decides to lean into the narrative of being an unparalleled genius to ensure his potential isn't wasted. Meanwhile, other apprentice knights outside his room marvel at his dedication, noting that he hasn't emerged for over a month and a half. They assume he is struggling to reach the 5th stage, which they consider the bare minimum for survival on the island. These seniors eventually head off to hunt, joking about their own low skill levels compared to the dangerous monsters nearby. After 6 weeks of seclusion, Leonard finally emerges and seeks out Bradley to request a real metal sword. Bradley is initially skeptical, accusing the boy of becoming arrogant after a bit of training. To prove his progress, our protagonist delivers a devastating punch that shatters a massive boulder. Bradley is stunned to see that a pentacore user actually reached the 3rd stage in only a month. To test the boy's resolve, Bradley releases a terrifying demonic red aura that momentarily overwhelms Leonard. Satisfied that the rookie hasn't lost his sense of caution, the senior knight hands over a sheathed sword. He warns our hero that he must pay for the weapon with spirit stones if it is lost or broken. Armed with his new blade and a map, Leonard spots a location marked with a skull and decides to investigate. Under the light of a full moon, he arrives at the Forest of Remnants, where a swarm of monsters waits for him in the dark. These creatures are known as hobgoblins, rank E2 threats that fill the air with a grim presence. While one monster stares into the shadows, a sharp blade suddenly cuts through the air and splatters it with blood before it can even react. Our protagonist walks calmly through the woods with his sword, looking completely out of place in such a brutal environment. He notes that no matter how cleanly he cuts down his enemies, the smell of blood is impossible to hide. When another hobgoblin lunges from the darkness, Leonard dashes forward with incredible speed. He carves through multiple monsters simultaneously in a single fluid movement, promising to send them off without any unnecessary pain. As the last creature dies, a white diamond-shaped stone emerges from its chest. Our hero catches the object, explaining that when these monsters perish, they release their internal mana in the form of spirit stones. Standing in a clearing littered with the remains of his foes, the boy realizes he has collected about 100 low-grade stones in one day. While this is a decent haul, he knows he cannot expect much more growth here since the Forest of Remnants is home only to weaklings who have been pushed out of the natural food chain. Suddenly, he stops walking as he senses a shift in the atmosphere. He notices a scent that is entirely different from the goblins, identifying it as a gnoll. As the creature isn't even trying to hide its presence, the Swordmaster realizes the beast sees him as easy prey. He grips his hilt tightly and enters a low combat stance just as a bipedal wolf creature armed with a massive iron axe leaps from the trees. Leonard taunts the beast to come at him, and the monster responds with a deafening roar while slamming its axe down with enough force to crush the earth. Although it looks like our protagonist has been flattened, he actually moves with such precision that he ends up standing behind the beast completely unharmed. The wolf creature growls with hunger, but Leonard remains focused, analyzing its posture. The beast lunges again, swinging its axe in a wide arc that creates a powerful shockwave. Our hero leaps into the air to dodge, realizing that the monster's ability to change its attack path mid-swing indicates a terrifying level of power. He concludes that this is not an ordinary gnoll. While a typical gnoll is ranked at D1, this red-eyed beast has evolved further. Leonard identifies it as an agnoll, a rank D3 threat. Instead of being afraid, a sinister smile crosses his face as he realizes he finally has a chance for some worthwhile training. The agnoll charges with an aura trailing behind it, but our guy moves with fluid grace, confident that such wild attacks will never hit him. He ducks under a horizontal swing that throws sparks against his sword and watches as the monster buries its axe deep into the dirt. Seeing the weapon stuck in the ground, Leonard spots a decisive opening. Since the creature's thick muscles and bones protect its body, he targets the throat, which remains vulnerable. He lunges forward and delivers a powerful thrust into the beast's neck, triggering a massive explosion of mana. As the dust settles, the agnoll disintegrates into particles, leaving behind a large purple crystal. Leonard is pleasantly surprised to find a mid-grade spirit stone, which is worth 100 low-grade ones. He realizes that if creatures of this caliber live here, his internal energy will grow much faster than expected. He decides he has no more business in the forest for now and heads back to his quarters. Later, sitting cross-legged in his treehouse, Leonard absorbs the mana like a whirlpool. He is shocked to find he has already reached the 10th stage of body tempering. However, he sees a potential problem. If a pentacore user like him achieves this level of success in only a few months, it will draw far too much unwanted attention. He begins to wonder if there is a way to gather more resources without standing out. Outside his door, 3 senior apprentice knights in black uniforms have been checking on him for 3 months. They are worried as the boy hasn't stepped outside once. The gray-haired leader of the group explains that they are trying to be the first friendly faces the rookie meets. He believes that in a prestigious house like Cardenas, making a connection with the top-ranked student is a powerful political weapon that is worth more than any shallow tie with a lesser family. He pushes a blonde senior named Hayden toward the door, urging him to at least greet the boy. Hayden stumbles forward with a bucket of fish and ice, calling out to the rookie and warning him that he needs to eat to progress in his training. He peeks through a crack in the door and sees Leonard sitting in the shadows, but as there isn't a single sound, Hayden becomes nervous and suggests they leave. Inside the room, our protagonist watches them go and realizes they were simply probing the situation. However, he saw Hayden's face clearly through the gap in the door and hatches a plan. He reasons that while his own rapid progress would be suspicious, no one would question the strength of a senior who has lived on the island for 10 years. Drawing on his memories as the Sword Emperor, Leonard decides to use a forbidden disguise technique called reverse utilization art. This skill allows him to manipulate his facial veins and muscles to change his appearance. Suddenly, his features melt and reform until he has transformed perfectly into Hayden. He reflects on how strange it is to use a technique he once used as an emperor just to hide his power as a student. He prepares to inhabit Hayden's identity for a while, ready to move through the island without being noticed. 3 months have passed since Leonard began his isolation on Calabagas Island, and he now finds himself navigating the dense fog of the Bone Mountain Swamp. Through his time in this desolate place, he has learned that the primary rule for survival is acknowledging that he is completely alone. As every creature in this murky environment possesses deadly poison and the ability to hide in the greenery, our guy must move with extreme caution. He understands that if he lets his guard down for even a second, he will be devoured by the reptilian lizardmen that hunt beneath the surface of the bubbling green water. A typical lizardman is a rank sea threat, making them significantly more dangerous than the Agnol he faced previously. Since these monsters are numerous, he decides to end the encounter quickly to avoid being swarmed. He kicks off a tree branch with explosive force and dives toward a creature, cleaving through it in a single decisive blow. As he lands on a nearby rock, Leonard realizes the noise from his attack has accidentally disturbed a much larger presence. A massive troll clutching a primitive spear emerges from the swamp and towers over him. Despite the creature's intimidating size, the Swordmaster remains calm as he can see that the monster's movements are simple and lack any formal training. He disappears from sight and reappears behind the giant, ending the fight with a single strike. As the troll falls, it leaves behind a multicolored spirit stone. By collecting this prize, Leonard notes that he has now gathered 1,500 mid-grade spirit stones. He concludes that the total mana within this haul is more than enough to reach the next stage of his cultivation in one go. Crossing a major boundary is an intense process that creates an explosion of energy. Our protagonist is currently at the 10th stage of the body refining realm and continues to use his Hayden disguise to avoid suspicion. However, he knows that breaking through to the next realm will release so much mana that it will be impossible to keep his progress a secret on the island. For this reason, he begins searching for a secluded space that can suppress the mana explosion and provide shelter from the elements. While pushing through a curtain of vines, he discovers a hidden valley filled with plants. He is shocked to find a field of rare spirit herbs that have a much higher mana absorption rate than spirit stones. He notices a muscular troll guarding the field, but before the monster can react to his presence, a giant white lycanthrope leaps from a cliff and attacks. Leonard watches from the shadows as the two beasts engage in a violent territorial dispute. He is impressed as the troll can manipulate dozens of tons of earth and stone while the wolf creature dodges with the speed of lightning. Realizing this elemental battle won't be settled quickly, he sees an opportunity to slip toward a cave entrance behind the monsters. He reasons that if a troll of that caliber is guarding the area, there must be incredible treasure inside. As he enters the dark tunnel, he notices that the sounds of the battle outside vanish instantly. This silence makes the cavern the perfect spot for his breakthrough since the walls naturally block out noise and mana fluctuations. Deeper inside, the tunnel opens into a massive chamber centered around a magnificent tree glowing with intense golden light. Leonard is baffled by the sheer quantity of mid-grade spirit herbs growing at the roots. When he tries to touch the tree, his fingers ripple against an invisible mana barrier. This protective shield explains why he couldn't sense the immense power of the golden tree from the outside. He suspects this tree is high-grade or perhaps something even more legendary that the troll doesn't fully understand. Just as our protagonist prepares to begin his breakthrough, he senses a presence behind him. The wounded troll from the entrance has followed him into the cave, dripping blood from its battle with the lycanthrope. Due to the cave's unique mana-blocking properties, even the Swordmaster didn't notice the creature until it was standing directly behind him. Luckily, the monster is heavily fatigued and its wounds haven't healed yet. The troll roars in a rage and slams its fists into the walls, causing the cavern entrance to collapse. Leonard realizes the monster purposefully trapped them both inside to ensure the intruder cannot escape. Rather than being worried, he feels that this enclosed space is ideal for a final confrontation. He draws his sword as a massive mana appears around him, ready to take down the Guardian and claim the cave for his transition to the next realm. As he engages the wounded troll in battle, Leonard uses his speed to move around constantly, jumping from one position to another. He carefully studies the monster's attack pattern and starts wondering if it has already realized the massive difference in speed between them. The troll, however, keeps throwing rocks in a reckless manner, which the MC barely manages to dodge each time. Leonard grows concerned that even a single rock could take him down instantly. Because of that, he decides not to take unnecessary risks and plans to finish the fight with one decisive strike. He attempts exactly that by swinging his sword with precision, but the troll turns out to be smarter than expected and survives the attack by using the surrounding earth and rocks to block it. The troll does not stop there and quickly turns around. It launches a fire punch directly at the spot where Leonard was standing, but the boy manages to dodge the attack once again thanks to his sharp reflexes and high speed. At this point, he has no doubt that this monster had defeated the lycanthropes because it is capable of using two elements. Now that the monster has started using fire attacks, Leonard realizes that simply closing the distance will not work anymore. He keeps avoiding the attacks while trying to think of a different strategy. As he glances at the intense flames, he understands that even a brief contact could burn him badly to end up as barbecue for the monster. He now focuses on finding some kind of gap or weak point that he can exploit if he wants to win against the troll. Leonard carefully observes while dodging each incoming strike until he finally spots an opening around the troll's injured leg. He immediately dashes toward it, lands on the monster's leg, then jumps up and attacks its neck before pulling back. As he flips backward in a clean somersault, he quickly follows up by rushing in again and striking at the left side of the monster's chest, where a deep wound is already visible. Leonard drives his blade straight into the monster's heart, hoping this will finally end the fight. But just as the crystal inside begins to shatter, the troll suddenly bursts into flames. Our MC realizes that if the monster explodes while he is still this close, he will suffer serious damage. Unfortunately, he does not get enough time to escape and gets caught in the blast. The explosion throws him across the area until he crashes hard into a tree, then drops to the ground while coughing up blood. The fire around him spreads rapidly, and he quickly understands that the entire cave will be engulfed in flames within minutes. He starts considering his options, firmly ruling out the idea of relying on any help from outside. In the nick of time, he recalls hearing once that reaching a higher realm could restore his physical body and even recover his stamina. Without wasting any time, he quickly grabs the spirit stones lying near him and starts absorbing their energy, pushing himself in an attempt to break into the next realm. His body begins to recover as the massive flow of energy surges through him, yet even that still does not feel enough. He immediately moves toward the nearby spirit herbs and starts shoving them into his mouth one after another, forcing himself to absorb every bit of energy they contain. As soon as his preparation is complete, he sits down and begins to meditate. The surge of mana exceeds his limits as the pentacore starts rotating all at once. Leonard feels as if all his energy is merging into one, almost like his old heart is being replaced by a completely brand new one. Somehow he manages to break through into the next realm just in time. Sometime later, Leonard sits there amazed that not only has his pentacore fused into one, but that he has straight up jumped into the third stage of the external force realm. His seniors have been stuck grinding on the second stage for years, which makes his breakthrough feel extraordinary. All his injuries are now gone, and his mana flow is smoother than ever before. He could not even imagine that just one level up could cause this much growth in an instant. But the question still stands as to how he managed to survive that huge explosion. He didn't even get roasted one bit by those flames. Staring at the bright blue fruit in front of him, he comes to realize what happened. The golden tree's light has faded except for this one fruit. The vast energy that the tree was giving off must have shielded him from the fiery blast. Holding the fruit in his hands, he feels that it is a part of him now. Leonard wonders if he successfully absorbed every last bit of that mana from before. Putting the fruit in his bag, he promises to plant it again in a safe place since the tree did save his life. He then hurries towards the cave entrance because if he gets any later, then everyone will realize that he is an imposter. Our boy blasts through the pile of rubble, not aware how overpowered he has gotten after that breakthrough. A few moments later, he reaches the hut he was assigned and relaxes a bit. He realizes that his current look might seem sus to others, so he decides to pack all of his stuff first. After all, he was supposed to be training inside his hut all this time. The scene then shifts to the senior knights. Hayden gets alert as he notices that the door of our hero's hut has finally opened. Senior Ian immediately rushes to him and introduces himself with a smile. Leonard also gives his name and then straight up asks that he needs help with his sword training. Ian tries to reason that it is too sudden to ask for a sparring session. However, our hero remains firm, saying that he would like nothing better right now than to depend on his capable seniors. All that sweet talk gets through and Ian immediately folds, while the other seniors get disgusted by his eagerness. The brown-haired knight tells Leonard to follow him and learn from a true knight of Cardenas. A few moments later, the senior gets swept off his feet with ease, as our boy claims his first swift victory. He then proceeds to defeat Gale like he is stealing candy from a baby. Hayden is shocked, wondering if this is the true level of a newbie nowadays. He barely manages to dodge the incoming attack with his arm and activates his flame aura on instinct. Ian immediately calls him out for using mana against a junior, which makes Hayden freeze on the spot. The seniors rush towards Leonard, worried that he might have been injured. However, our boy brushes it off as a minor injury, while the blonde-haired senior keeps on apologizing profusely. Staring at his smoking hand, our hero is more interested in the fact that even blocking a sword with mana can cause some serious damage. This shows that swordsmanship alone won't get you far in this world. He smiles, thinking that here he was helping them with their training while there is still a lot more he needs to learn. Hayden gets confused when he sees that his junior isn't angry. However, our boy simply picks up his sword and says that he is looking forward to future training sessions and that they will have a really fun time. In the end, they decide to train at his hut on a daily basis. The next day, the mood shifts as Ian calls out to Leonard and says that the training is cancelled for today. He gets confused by the gear the senior is wearing and asks what happened. Ian explains that there has been a huge explosion in the Bone Mountains marsh recently, which requires an investigation. On the inside, our boy is glad that they don't know it was him behind the act. The senior explains that a werewolf and a troll reached the true demon realm level and had a territorial dispute. The troll was reduced to charred barbecue while the werewolf was found dead, completely skinned. Ian guesses that the two must have taken each other out, and because of that, the small fry are trying to claim the territory now. That is why the Order has mobilized the knights to take care of the mess. Since our boy is still a newbie, he cannot come and must stay here. As compensation, Ian says that he has something to give him in return. The senior drops a couple of swords on the ground and says that these will help with practice. Leonard thanks him for his generosity. However, the shameless senior then tells him to return the favor when he makes it big in the future. Our boy smiles and sees him off, while the guy reminds him to stay safe since all the knights are busy training for today. He thanks Ian again for his advice, while on the inside, he is surprised since he never expected the incident to skyrocket like this. However, this is the perfect opportunity for him since now he should be able to move around with no hindrances. Since all the knights are accounted for, if he accidentally runs into someone while disguised as Hayden, then it would lead to serious problems. So in the end, he decides to use the werewolf's hide as a precaution. Stopping at the edge of the cliff, he declares that it is now time for him to explore the Owl Plains. Looking around, he notes that it's way too quiet, but at the same time he can feel monsters watching him from a distance. Even though their bloodlust is obvious, none of them is making a move, which leaves him confused. Leonard figures they're either playing smart or completely lost their reasoning. This makes him sad, that this whole trip was a waste of time. Just then, a massive shadow swoops down from the sky, revealing itself to be a giant owl-like creature. Pulling off his hood, our boy asks the owlbear if it's the first challenger of the day. For him, this is actually perfect timing since he was itching to test out his new power anyway. Meanwhile, on the other side of the island, a group of people struggles their way forward towards the shore. Their leader announces that they have already lost 2 members to the sea. Acting like a full-on cult preacher, he tells the rest to treat that as a lesson in sacrifice and dedication. The man in question is a deadly cult follower who is known as Kyrgis's fifth shadow. He hypes them up, shouting that their comrades didn't die for nothing and orders them to complete the mission at all costs. The fifth shadow orders them to go and capture the Cardenas newbie alive and uncover what makes his bloodline so special. As they split up, he gives one final command to show no mercy, even if the target is just a kid, calling the Cardenas nothing but evil. A few moments later, one of the invaders gets separated from his squad. The guy is immediately shaken by how many A-ranked monsters are roaming this island. Since he's just a low-rank fighter, fighting them isn't even an option, so he's forced to keep running. It freaks him out, making him question why the Cardenas would even come to a dangerous place like this. After a while, he manages to calm down and pushes deeper toward the center. Strangely enough, the monsters start getting weaker the further he goes, which makes him realize someone has been clearing them out. Soon enough, he spots an owlbear and thinks he can at least handle this one. But the moment he climbs onto it, he realizes it's already dead. That instantly puts him on edge as he looks around in fear. After scanning his surroundings, he notes that there isn't just one corpse here, which means whoever did this is definitely a pro. Suddenly, a rock comes flying at him out of nowhere, but he reacts in time and slices it apart, shouting for the attacker to show themselves. Right on cue, our boy steps in and claims that line for himself. Before the cultist can even process what's happening, Leonard closes the distance and lands a clean jab to his neck, then casually asks who he is. He even mocks him, asking if he forgot how to speak, and promises to drag every bit of information out of him. The cultist immediately panics and swings his sword wildly. Our hero steps back, reading the killing intent behind the strike, and realizing this guy is actually going all out. That only makes the thug more nervous, since a kid is easily dodging all of his attacks. Leonard then slips behind him and launches a surprise attack, but his blade bounces off the guy's armor. That makes him pause, wondering if it's some kind of magical artifact. Sensing danger, he quickly retreats, just as a massive snake manifests around the cultist. The guy can't believe he had to pull out a secret technique against a brat like this. Our boy asks if that's supposed to be some kind of assassination trick, then immediately roasts him for having painfully average sword skills as he closes the gap again. The two clash blades once more, while Leonard keeps talking trash, pointing out that the guy clearly hasn't fought anyone strong before. The cultist then breaks into a smile as he summons chains that wrap around our hero's sword. On the inside, the thug tries to act tough, pitying him for letting go of his weapon, but then his eyes widened in fear. Our boy isn't the least bit concerned as he pulls his arm back and makes a tight fist. He taunts the cultist for thinking that he needs a sword to fight, and then proceeds to deliver an extra deluxe knuckle sandwich that sends the guy flying away. The low-rank fighter is shocked that the kid is able to react quickly and effectively in an instant. His last thought is wondering what the hell the bloodline feeds their children as he passes out. That night, Leonard approaches the cultist and states that he will decide whether the guy will live or die. The thug calls him a devil and a coward for using his bloodline's overwhelming strength to fight. That statement catches our hero completely off guard, who then counters that the thug was using all sorts of artifacts, calling him stupid. The cultist goes into denial, shouting that no method is unfair when dealing with Cardenas scum. Leonard then raises his fist, which shuts the guy up, who then asks for a quick death. However, our boy coldly lets him know that's not for him to decide. The guy then gets desperate, swearing that he will not reveal anything even if it kills him, calling him a trash bag with impure blood. That phrase finally clicks as he asks if the thug is talking about the Cardenas bloodline. The cultist claims that the blood flowing through our boy's veins is sinful. He says that all Cardenas descendants are not human, and this time, an abomination with monstrous strength has been born in the wretched clan. Leonard smiles and states that the guy sure knows a lot, and he wouldn't mind juicing out more info out of him. Leonard's captive prisoner had quite a nasty mouth on him. He questioned why the Cardenas family was so guarded that even the branch families weren't based outside the bubble of their country. It's obvious that their bloodline holds untold secrets. If their progenitor was as heroic and orthodox as detailed in the legends, there should be no need to hide. Leonard half-heartedly listened to the vitriolic rant. He could see that this man envied the power and prosperity of his family to the point of throwing his knight's honor to kidnap a child. If this man intended to fight fair and square from the jump, he would not have brought such childish restraining devices. Leonard firmly asserted that even if these pathetic people uncover the secrets of Cardenas, nothing will change. Third-rate dwellers of the frontier, lacking both power and honor, will remain third-rate. With how pathetic they've devolved, can they even face their ancestors? The prisoner snapped at the youngster's annoyingly accurate insults. Based on that reaction, Leonard determined that the man came from the kingdom of Kyrgyz. When the mind is disturbed, one tends to forget even the most obvious tricks. Leonard forcefully opened the prisoner's mana circuits. He will die shortly, but they still have time for a chat to squeeze every relevant intel necessary. Kyrgyz was a small to medium-sized kingdom in the western part of the continent. It was formerly known as the Holy Land of Knights until a few centuries ago, when the Cardenas appeared. The Knights of Kyrgyz Kingdom suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of the Red Dragon Knights. A single defeat that occurred overnight erased them from history, forgotten by the world. Cardenas took over as the Holy Land of aspiring knights. It sounds like these people infiltrated Kalabogos to attack Cardenas and reclaim their lost reputation. They intend to probe the secrets of the family's bloodline. In a sense, that part of the plan aligns with Leonard's own interests. The biggest problem was the involvement of a transcendent realm expert leading the operation. This was way above Leonard's ability to handle alone. The smartest move would be to inform Sir Bradley. The Shadow Knights of Kyrgyz cannot be underestimated. Most of the knights on this island are apprentices with little to no experience in real combat. This is far too heavy and dangerous. After wringing every bit of information from his prisoner, the so-called 30th Shadow, Leonard slit the man's throat, eliminating a loose end. He used enough force to imitate some traces of a Swordmaster-level skill when doing so. He was a bit bummed that he could only imitate a fraction of that power, but this should be enough to convey an effective message. Of course, he looted the magic tools out of 30th Shadow's pockets before carrying the corpse on his shoulder. The dead do not complain. The bulk of the Cardenas forces have camped near the marsh, right outside the Troll's Cave. After a hard day's work, Leonard's seniors finally got some free time to rest up. They prayed that nothing else would come up. It had been an exhausting day after all. The prayer must have jinxed their fate. Hayden noticed something grotesque slumped against a nearby tree. It was the bloody corpse of the 30th Shadow. The trio immediately called Sir Bradley. When the senior knight saw traces of Swordmaster energy on the corpse, his eyes widened. There was no doubt about it. The intruder was killed using an aura blade, a technique that can only be wielded by Swordmasters. Tucked in the dead man's pockets was a letter detailing what's happening. It was a confession written out of guilt for attacking kids. The pages revealed that the Shadow Knights of Kyrgyz have infiltrated Kalabogos. Veterans led by a transcendent realm expert are heading toward the center of the island to capture as many apprentice knights as possible. Bradley quickly formed a plan to prevent such a tragedy. They could gather up for safety, but the leader of the Shadow Knights will pose a massive problem regardless. The senior knight instructed Ian to sound the alarm for an emergency gathering. When the sound of danger rang out all over the island, every knight ran to the meeting point. Leonard was glad that Sir Bradley noticed the intent of his gruesome art project. When everyone was accounted for, Bradley informed them that this was not a drill. There are intruders on the island, and their military strength is formidable. The enemy force consists of 30 knights above the 8th stage of the external power realm. Among them, there is one knight in the transcendent realm of the Swordmaster. As Knights of Cardenas, they must be aware of how strong that individual is. They just have to imagine being hunted by Commander Fabian of the Young Dragon Knights. Swordmasters are widely classified as walking disasters. No matter the number of troops thrown at them, they will shred everything. Sir Bradley gave his men a choice to activate the space gate right away, to hide, abandon the island, or wait for family reinforcements. Or they could stay and face the enemy. The choice is in their hands. In Leonard's eyes, this could be a very valuable experience for inexperienced apprentice knights. That is, if they can survive. If they choose to withdraw out of fear, no one will blame them. Much to his surprise, the senior trio, Ian, Hayden, and Gale, were the first ones to volunteer to fight the intruders. Choosing to take up the sword in the face of imminent danger is not easy. Leonard gained a new level of respect for these three. After their bold declaration, the rest of the Calabagos Knights raised their swords in participation. Sir Bradley was pleased to see his men's determination. Still, he sent a reinforcement request from Commander Fabian. The next few days will be deadly. They had better prepare themselves. Leonard Cardenas was too valuable a prospect. So, he was evacuated as a protected target, which was convenient. Now he could use the earthen pit he had dug near his sleeping quarters and take the opportunity to look at the magic tools he had looted from his first victim. Most tools were broken, but the enchanted ring seemed usable enough. Wearing the ring activated a haste spell that was disappointingly interrupted. The ring's enchantment broke, and the gem housing the power turned to dust. His heart must have blocked the external mana. If so, none of the magic tools might work. Perhaps the only usable loot was the Shadow Knight's signaling device. He learned how to operate the device through interrogation, so there shouldn't be a problem. He can use it to locate enemies and launch surprise attacks. If found, he can even use it as a decoy. The only real threat to his life is the Swordmaster. It's about time to head out and cause some mayhem. Leonard ran through the forest, which he had been using as training grounds for a few months now. Finally, he caught a signal ping for requesting reinforcements. It would be safe to assume that the Swordmaster wouldn't be asking for help. He answered the call for help and headed to its source. His cover is still intact. This would be the perfect opportunity to pick off some enemies while they're in trouble. The SOS signal came from the Lion's Ravine. While being diced up by one of the monstrous inhabitants of the island, the Shadow Knights shamelessly blamed the Cardenas for their misfortune. They were not prepared to face an A-rank manticore on this cursed island. Even though they can be considered veterans, a monster like this was way above their pay grade. The manticore himself looked nasty too. His tails were the main problem at the moment. It was strong, fast, and capable of multitasking. It took the dumbass Shadow Knights way too long to cut their losses, ignore the beast, run, and prioritize what they came for. When they received a reply to their distress signal, they were reinvigorated. They convinced themselves that an A-rank acting alone can be taken down if backup arrives. But when the comrade they had been relying on arrived, all he brought was despair, not assistance. Leonard jumped right into the battlefield and sliced through 3 incapacitated Shadow Knights in one go. Their communication signal was compromised somehow. When asked how, Leonard taunted that he simply provoked the 30th Shadow a little, and he started blabbing everything. The Kyrgyz people are truly pathetic. Insulted, the Shadow Knights forgot about the Manticore and attacked the blonde boy. They just proved how accurate his trash talk was. These guys were way too easy to rage bait. They let their emotions blind them. For the sake of their fallen comrades, the supposed veterans threw caution to the wind and charged the Cardenas Devil. Halfway through the charge, they were flattened to the ground one by one. Leonard didn't even move an inch. He let the monster do all the work. The ugly manticore was scoring kills left and right. It had the body of a lion, a snake's tail, and normally the face of a goblin or troll. Manticores are very strong A-rank monsters. Leonard had heard that their power can be gauged by their heads. This one in particular had a human face. With the Shadow Knight eliminated, the manticore turned its attention to the youngster. He was quite surprised when the beast spoke clearly in the human tongue. The manticore took one look at him and turned away. He resigned to the fact that if they fought, his ugly ass would probably die. A monster that could measure an opponent's strength accurately was quite impressive. But the manticore believed that he wouldn't die easily. All he had to do was buy time and someone would come, some strong beyond comparison. Leonard surmised that the beast was talking about the leader of the Shadow Knights, the man called Fifth Shadow. That one guy is far more dangerous than everyone else who landed on this island combined. Admittedly, Leonard does not stand a chance at his current level. If the manticore was right, staying in this open field for too long would be dangerous. But he refused to believe the words of a bizarre monster. Since he doesn't want to accept the warning, the manticore dared him to square up. Considering his priorities, Leonard turned his back and spared the monster this time around. A few steps into sparing the manticore, the devious monster called him a fool and went on full attack mode with his spiky tails. Leonard expected as much from a filthy beast. He drew a sword and tossed it from afar. The first strike is aimed at the manticore's hideous human face. The blade ripped through the eye, making the beast groan in agony. It tried to retaliate using the lethal tails, but Leonard had already invaded its effective range. The second strike was aimed at the lungs, making every breath a struggle. The third and final strike was for the heart, severing the life of the atrocious anomaly. As the manticore said, Leonard can't stay for long. 3 strikes and he was out of there. On his way out of the crime scene, the signaling device lit up with another urgent message. Based on the ping's intensity, he knew that the 5th shadow was coming. Without hesitation, he threw that shit away. The device had not even landed when a cloaked visage of a man holding a sword swooped in to grab it mid-air. 5th shadow clicked his tongue. He was too late. If he had arrived a moment sooner, he could have turned things around. The Swordmaster's instinct kicked in when he noticed something moving from afar. He unleashed a sword strike that covered a massive area that almost clipped Leonard, who was hiding nearby. That man must have sensed his hidden presence from a distance. If he doesn't move, he'll get found out and caught in the crossfire. Thankfully, he could rely on a skill he invested in a while ago, the art of digging a freaking hole. 5th Shadow went on an aimless rampage while his unknown target burrowed away. It was unlike him to be wrong in cases like this. His intuition must be getting dull because the plan is going off track more than expected. He gathered the blades of his fallen comrades and prayed for a peaceful rest before departing. He had been busy throughout the day. The objective had already been achieved. Once Leonard was far enough, he dug up and surfaced in the middle of the woods. Coincidentally, he reached a battlefield, at least one aftermath of one. There was a single Cardenas knight still breathing. He got here too late. The poor guy was bloodied and beaten. He was missing half of his skull. He'll probably die soon. Before that, he told the apprentice knight what happened. Earlier today, 45 intermediate knights were wiped out in an instant. The carnage was done by a single swordmaster. Every apprentice knight was chained up and taken away. That includes Leonard's seniors, Hayden, Ian, and Gale. It was a mystery how those Shadow Knights managed to get past the forces of Cardenas while dragging hostages along. From the start, their goal was to secure living test subjects. The kids should be safe and unharmed before being transported. As far as he could think of, Leonard knew only one way that they could pull off a clean escape: mass teleportation. They must have prepared a magic circle that can teleport a big crowd to a single location simultaneously. Those bastards already accomplished the first part of their objective. To move that many people at once, they will need a vast space to make the destination easy to predict. He asked the dying knight where Sir Bradley was. Currently, he's out searching the entire area with the remaining forces. Leonard got everything he needed from the maimed knight. It's time to take the big guy out of his misery. He enhanced his hand with a little bit of aura and stabbed the poor guy's heart, killing him instantly. If Sir Bradley was still searching the area, then he's completely off base in his assumptions. Leonard will have to find a way to let him know what's about to go down, or the Cardenas will suffer a crushing defeat at this rate. He assumed that advice from a trainee would likely lack persuasive power. He needed to be creative, so he ditched his clothes and put on the enemy's uniform. Sir Bradley is currently leading an army of knights as they cluelessly roam the woods. Seeing no signs of Shadow Knights at all, he thought the enemy had retreated, throwing their pride as knights. Out of nowhere, a foreign presence broke through their ranks. It was a figure clad in a cloak and a mask, carrying the dead body of a Cardenas knight. Bradley recognized the movement technique the figure was using. It was definitely some Kyrgyz tech. Unbeknownst to them, the man under the mask was their golden boy, Leonard Cardenas. Sir Bradley yelled the command to eliminate the intruder, snapping his men out of their daze. Leonard's plan was working perfectly. They were trying to chase him. The ranged attacks from thrown swords were a bit troublesome, but he was agile enough to dodge all of them in midair. He even used some of the blades as surfaces to increase his flight time. Eventually, he outran the majority of intermediate knights. Only Sir Bradley was fast enough to keep up with him. He already succeeded. He used himself as bait to lead the man to where he needed to be. Sir Bradley tried to slice him apart, but he was barely able to get out of the way. Bradley was so hell-bent on chasing that he didn't notice reaching the coast of the island. With the mystery man gone and the corpse of the poor knight dropped off, Leonard's job was done. Sir Bradley had better survive what's about to happen. The real enemy will appear very soon. 5th Shadow was alerted by Bradley's attack and came to check it out. He was disgusted by the sight of a Cardenas dog. Bradley could tell that this man was the real deal, the mastermind behind all this commotion. 5th Shadow insisted that this was just a small first step toward a great feat. It was insulting to hear kidnapping being framed as a great feat. Sir Bradley squared up, and 5th Shadow drew his sick-ass green sword. He gave the signal to his men, and a massive amount of mana rose to the skies. Sir Bradley recognized the mana signature as a mass teleportation spell. 5th Shadow openly admitted that there are 15 minutes until full activation. In the meantime, he'd love to play with a dog of the wretched family. From his suffocatingly toxic aura alone, he mogged the fuck out of Bradley. Leonard stood and watched nearby, banking on his supervisor to hold on a little longer. At the same time, he went and rescued his fellow apprentice knights. Much to his surprise, infiltrating the Kyrgyz camp was easy as shit. Even though he was constantly masking his presence, these idiots didn't even glance in his general direction. These people foolishly dropped their guard while their boss was out fighting. This was the perfect chance for a backdoor play. As soon as he entered the tent where the test subjects were being held, he started destroying their chains one by one. The apprentices were confused that someone wearing a Kyrgyz uniform was helping them. Leonard had neither the time nor the obligation to explain. He just told them to escape immediately. Quickly getting over their initial hesitation, the apprentices turned to him, bowed, and thanked the mystery man from the bottom of their hearts. With the primary objective of freeing his peers accomplished, it's time for Leonard to get some fun exercise. After solving the hostage problem, it's time to take out the trash. Still wearing the Kyrgyz uniform, he launched a surprise attack behind enemy lines. It was quite effective. He cut through flesh, made them bleed, and took their worthless lives without missing a beat. He orchestrated the massacre of an entire military camp with an innocent smile on his face. Not far from the encampment, Sir Bradley wasn't doing so hot against Fifth Shadow. The Swordmaster was just toying with him. He was not satisfied yet, but dicing up the dog of Cardenas was decent enough entertainment to kill time. With the pointless game over, he proudly declared that the Kyrgyz will once again stand at the pinnacle of the sword in the near future. After that declaration, he noticed something odd. The one who had been interfering with his plans was nearby. He completely ignored the bleeding Bradley and flew back to the camp. When he arrived, he meteor dived right into Leonard's position. It was a pretty loud and telegraphed attack. The young knight was able to jump out of the impact, but the air pressure ripped his mask off. Fifth Shadow expressed his disappointment upon seeing that the thorn by his side was a mere brat all this time. To mourn his comrades, he vowed to eliminate this brat specifically. The mass teleportation magic circle still loomed above the encampment, but the people who were supposed to be taken away had either died or escaped. Fifth Shadow stepped out for a few minutes to flex on a nobody, and his entire army had been wiped out, his plan in shambles. Completely allergic to accountability, he blamed it on the devil of Cardenas in front of him. Leonard was just focused on staying alive. This man is on a completely different level than anyone he has fought so far. Fifth Shadow's emotionally charged strike made contact with his blade. He was stunned when Blondie completely blocked his attack. The boy could actually manifest an aura blade of his own. Leonard deflected the madman, sending him flying. With his current strength, he can only maintain his aura state for 3 minutes at most. Recognizing him as a real threat, Fifth Shadow summoned his toxic aura blade. The man lost his cool, and they barely got started. He had grown noticeably sloppy with his attacks, and opportunities to counterattack were now available for Leonard. Closing the distance while dodging strikes like a circling predator was his bread and butter after all. Unbeknownst to him, Fifth Shadow was just trying to wound him, no matter how small. His blade was coated with severing venom. Even a tiny drop of this stuff could kill a grown-ass man. It should reach an adult's heart in mere seconds. It will completely sever the victim's mana flow and pulse. A painful death shall follow right after. Despite the gruesome play-by-play, Leonard was unfazed. He simply used the yapping to retake the initiative and attack. When the toxin reached his heart, it was completely destroyed by the abundant mana protecting the organ. Fifth Shadow did not account for something like this to happen at all. Honestly, Leonard neither. He didn't know that his heart had some poison resistance built in. Despite his surprise, he played it cool and moved as though the poison wasn't a big deal in the first place. Pushed to the brink of insanity, Fifth Shadow reshaped his aura into constructs shaped like snakes. He released a battalion of serpentine visages towards the boy, clearly straining himself. The man was moving as though he hoped to hit something if he attacked plenty enough times. This reckless technique made it more difficult to get close, but he had the answer to blow right through. His aura-infused sword throw cut through the snake constructs with ease and continued until it stabbed right into Fifth Shadow's shoulder. He cursed at the little brat, helpless and outplayed. Pushed to his limits, Fifth Shadow stopped giving a damn about his own survival. Even if it cost him his life, he was hell-bent on taking down the boy with him. He strained himself once more and summoned a bigger batch of snake constructs. This man was pushing his mana output to the human limit, clearly putting everything on the line. Although it looked like an all-out attack out of desperation, Leonard recognized it as a feint. He stayed calm and cut down the snakes crowding his space as quickly as he could. Focusing his remaining aura on his blade and striking with precision was the only correct move. This method took all of his focus, but it showed results. After fighting through a herd of giant snakes, he can finally reach the enemy. Flying right into Fifth Shadow with astonishing speed, he stabbed the man in the gut but was thrown away by a surprise shockbound. This supposed Swordmaster was a tricky son of a gun. He was hiding a magic tool all this time. He was purposefully acting carelessly and emotionally all this time to lure the kid in. Fifth Shadow insisted that his aimless mana and aura attacks were in service of luring him closer from the very beginning. At extremely close range, he could assert his superior level more effectively. Leonard's luck might have finally run out. As Fifth Shadow was winding up the killing blow, a familiar voice echoed from above. The hand that was about to claim the young prodigy's life was casually cut off. Commander Fabian had come to Leonard's timely rescue. Fifth Shadow turned his attention to the newcomer, but he was outmatched and mogged. In the name of the men who fell in the hands of this shameless bastard, Commander Fabian cut off both of Fifth Shadow's feet. Leonard was released from his grasp, and the boy immediately got to his favorite part, rage baiting the enemy. With a mocking smile, he basically told the Kurgis commander that it was stupid of him not to pay closer attention to who was approaching. Commander Fabian humbly apologized for arriving late. He could see that the boy had grown by an incredible amount since they last saw each other, which wasn't even that long ago. Thanks to Leonard, Bradley was saved too. He lost a hand, but he'll live. They have a bunch of questions to ask the Golden Boy, but that might have to wait until after he gets some much-needed rest. With how gently and proudly he looked at Leonard, Commander Fabian's disgust towards Fifth Shadow was a drastic shift. The wretched Swordmaster was using his aura to stay afloat, given his severed limbs. Sounding more insane than before, he asserted that this isn't over. Commander Fabian sensed that inhuman obsession to take down the Cardenas, and vowed to end it right then and there. With every bit of remaining mana in his body, Fifth Shadow bypassed the commander and flew towards the exhausted Leonard. The ugly bastard intends to fulfill his vow to take down the kid, even if it's the last thing he'll do. In a split second, Leonard Cardenas was swallowed by the light of the looming magic circle up above. Commander Fabian's expression darkened. He was outplayed, and he let his guard down. He didn't consider that the enemy would resort to such a foul and desperate trick. Fifth Shadow must have used the mass teleportation spell to take the boy away. Since the activation was incomplete, the destination would be practically impossible to discern. Fabian was a fool, and they lost Leonard because of it. Frustrated, they had already dealt with Fifth Shadow accordingly. They sliced that man in half like a juicy tomato. Sir Bradley reckoned that Fifth Shadow must have seen Leonard as such a massive threat that he was willing to compromise and bend his own beliefs. For someone who had only become an apprentice knight a few months ago, that kid survived against a transcendent realm swordmaster somehow. As old men, Bradley and Fabian have seen many promising apprentice knights in their lives. Even then, Leonard's growth was unprecedented. He might have the potential to become a new legend etched into the annals of history. First things first, they must immediately request reinforcements from the main house to look for the boy. They must find Leonard no matter what. Until then, all they could do was hope and pray that he was safe. Unbeknownst to anyone, Leonard Cardenas was randomly teleported in the middle of the ocean. He was heavily injured. He would have drowned if it weren't for a wooden plank that kept him afloat. After God knows how long, he was miraculously found by a passing ship. When Leonard woke up, his nose was assaulted by the smell of salty air. He felt a rocking motion that could only come from being on a ship. Opening his eyes, he was greeted by a pleasant voice coming from a nice brown-haired woman sitting on his bedside. The woman had a mountain of questions to ask him. Given that she saved his ass, she was expecting some proper answers. She apologized for yapping before introducing herself. Her name was Francis, captain of the Aquamarine. Leonard's head was still ringing, but he also gave her his first name as well as his homeland, the Arcadia Empire. Hearing that he came all the way from Arcadia surprised Francis greatly. When asked how he got all the way to this place from a foreign land, he truthfully detailed the incident. The last thing he remembered was getting caught up in Fifth Shadow's crazy space magic. Francis's sword-wielding attendant, Marion, couldn't help but join the conversation. She asked if he was from the Cardenas family. Only people from that clan could remain unharmed after being blended by space magic. Furthermore, she saw his body, which is trained to an unbelievable degree for such a young man. Nothing else makes sense unless he's from the legendary clan. Leonard was quite surprised that his family name was known even across the sea. He asked if his identity would pose a problem, and Marion turned to her boss. If the Cardenas clan is tracking this young man's whereabouts, no good can come from getting involved. Before they could figure out what to do with him, a crewman interrupted the meeting. Apparently, a gang of ruffians was making a scene on their wharf. The Luciano gang, led by the flip-flop-wearing scumbag, Luciano Peterson, was running wild again. This was the worst-case scenario. Those bastards probably targeted the day they were supposed to participate in an important meeting to harass them. Francis apologized to her guest. She won't be able to take her time showing him around the port today. Leonard could read some hostility in the air. Captain Francis was clearly troubled by the news. She made her way out to the wharf and gave Leonard permission to leave whenever he'd like, once he recovered enough. His clothes, sword, and four-dimensional bag were untouched and neatly on the bedside table. Before she left, he asked Francis one question. Why in the world did she save a stranger like him? The answer was simple. She helped him because it looked like he needed help. She never turns her back on anyone. Her words were equally true and honorable. But now, it looks like she's the one in need of help. The ruffians were making trouble as soon as the Aquamarine docked. Finally, Miss Marion and Lady Frances have come to resolve the issue. Luciano Peterson was a slimeball through and through. With his crew of lowlifes protecting his ass, he implored the ladies to smile a bit more. Marion nearly cut the tongue of the talkative brat right then and there. Luciano laughed at her threat and insisted that his business was with her master. A dog should keep its mouth shut when people are talking. He dared Marion to swing and take responsibility for what happens next. She really wanted to cut him up, but despite the anger clouding her judgment, she refrained from doing so. Luciano pushed Marion aside and made a beeline for Captain Francis. He whispered uncomfortably close to her ear, pushing for the handover of the Aquamarine. The bastard asserted that the beautiful ship was wasted on her. It's simply too good to be kept as an heirloom of a fallen royal family. With her old man gone, she doesn't have to hold on to everything they used to own. Francis was firm when she asked him to leave. She already made it clear that she would never hand over the ship, no matter what. Luciano's non-existent patience ran thin. He threatened Francis to wise up and take the generous price he was offering while she still can, or he'll start breaking something. Unfortunately for the scumbag, Leonard did more than just break his arm for that threat. He sliced that shit smooth off. He turned to Francis and innocently asked if he could kill the bastard. He had no patience for a nuisance right now. Captain Francis stuttered and gave him the green light to do the henchman, but spare the annoying man's life. The goon saw Luciano's arm fall on the wharf and cursed at the blonde young man. In pain and humiliated, Luciano gave his men the kill order to wipe everyone out. They swarmed Leonard right away. The worst decision they could have ever made in the entirety of their pathetic little lives. Dual-wielding his blades, the reincarnation of the Sword Emperor tore through the crowd of criminals like a god of death. He was efficient and quick with his kills. They didn't even know they died. They just spawned in hell one by one. It took him less than a minute to wrap up, leaving Miss Marion and Captain Francis stunned. Before the supposed guard could swing her sword, the job was already done. That's just the unnatural power of Cardenas. Leonard picked up the remaining piece of garbage and kicked him down to grovel before Francis. Surprisingly, Luciano managed to reattach his arm in the commotion. When asked how to deal with the biggest dirtbag of them all, Marion and Francis didn't know what to do. Even though Luciano seemed like a good-for-nothing lowlife, he's actually the illegitimate child of the highest authority in Atlantis. This place, the Atlantis Maritime Union, is governed by the Union Council. Pablo L. Orlando Peterson, that bald son of a bitch, is a big shot. One of the top 5 in the Union Council when it comes to influence. His bastard son is a more troublesome fellow than Leonard thought. Since he had already gotten mixed up in this mess, he offered to work as Francis's bodyguard for the time being. He could stay by her side to resolve this issue while gathering information. Just a nice seaside side quest before going home. After seeing Leonard slaughter a whole gang of thugs and sever Luciano's arm, Captain Francis was more than willing to employ him as a bodyguard. They shook hands on it, looking forward to a fruitful union. Leonard just woke up a few moments ago and he's already secured the bag and got a job. Luciano thought he could sneak away by crawling like a worm. The trio was just thinking about what they should do to the guy. They need to lock that dude up somewhere he can't bother anyone. As long as they don't kill him, his father won't intervene. That man had already given up on his lousy, illegitimate child. Pablo L. Orlando Peterson will turn a blind eye as long as his son is still breathing. Relieved that they wouldn't face any more headaches for now, Francis led the way into the coastal city with a new bodyguard in tow. Leonard followed her around, taking in all the new sights. Since he's technically working for her, he considered calling her Captain. It seems only fitting, but Francis would rather be referred to as Fran. The first time Leonard called her by her nickname, the captain's cheeks visibly flushed, and her heart skipped a beat. Apparently, it wasn't so bad being closely familiar with the stranger she found floating in the middle of the sea. When they reached the city proper, Leonard was bombarded with beautiful and curious displays of water magic. It was quite a sight. He had never seen something so fancy in Arcadia before. Fran gave him the lowdown about the trade city of Atlantis. This whole territory values appearance above all. It might look fancy on the surface, but it's all just for show. It is effective nonetheless. Many adventurers are enticed to gather in the city due to its flashy splendor. In the heart of the city was Bermuda, the management office for adventuring parties within Atlantis. Fran stood before Bermuda's magic gate and verified Aquamarine's party code, B07. The gate automatically confirmed her identity and verified her credentials as Captain Francis Lel von Oceanus of Aquamarine. The party was instructed to head over to Zephyrus Hall, a lounge for B-rank adventuring parties. Considering how new all these things were to Leonard, he cautiously followed his new boss. The interior of the Zephyrus Hall was even fancier than the magic gates. He might have underestimated the status of a B-rank party. Considering their access to this lavish lounge, Aquamarine might be a much larger operation than he originally thought. Manning the front desk was a cheerful lady named Clara, the staff member in charge of the Zephyrus Hall. She will be assisting them with their party registration today. With Leonard joining, the official member count of the Aquamarine party will increase to a whopping 3 people. His thoughts of being part of a big operation were quickly extinguished. Clara asked him about his area of expertise to record and assess the party's updated overall combat capability. Without anyone asking for his input, some random drunkard with a sword yelled at Clara not to bother with the interview. Judging by Leonard's appearance, he's obviously Fran's little boy toy. Not one to tolerate disrespect directed at his captain, Leonard asked Fran for permission to take care of the nuisance. She didn't want him to bother. She's gotten used to constant disrespect. Still, the drunkard continued spouting some heinous shit, calling Leonard a filler recruit to fluff up the numbers. Not willing to tolerate any more provocations, Leonard knocked the blade out of the drunkard's hand. Disarmed and caught off guard, the drunkard's life flashed before his eyes. Luckily for him, Leonard stopped his sword inches away from a gruesome beheading in the middle of the luxurious lounge. This display of skill should be enough for Clara to give him a rough evaluation for the paperwork. When asked where he was originally from, Leonard gave his answer some serious thought. Based on Marion's reaction when they were on the ship, his Arcadian origin would be better off hidden for now. Staying silent would also come with its own set of problems. So he claimed to have come from the kingdom of Kyrgyz. It was the only country he could think of on the spot. Clara processed and documented his addition to the party, and his registration with Aquamarine was completed without a hitch. Fran tried to hide it, but she was obviously psyched to have a new addition to her team. Leonard saw her trying to hide her excitement, and Fran lamented the death of her dignity as a captain. Forcing herself to appear commanding and professional, she gave Leonard a formal welcome to her party. With guild business out of the way, Leonard is now free to go and do some sightseeing around the city to satisfy his curiosity. The captain may be a bit of an amateur, but he found himself looking forward to working with her. Before going out to explore Atlantis, Leonard wanted to ask the boss for a favor. As expected, Fran granted him the favor by directing him to another building in the city. In there, a sultry voice behind the door welcomed him. Inside was an absolute baddie with long flowing brown hair and a dump truck behind. One look, and she could tell that the young man wasn't a mage. Yet Fran asked her to teach Leonard everything there was to know about magic. For starters, she offered him something to drink while they discussed Leonard's situation. He gave her just enough information regarding how he was swallowed by space magic, igniting his curiosity to find a way to counter such things. The problem was his lack of knowledge or understanding of magic as a whole. Esther, the baddie, a fourth circle mage of the Atlantis Magic Tower, listened intently. She could tell that Leonard wasn't some random dude trying to become a magic swordsman. According to her, the best way to learn about magic is to simply get used to it. Esther knows of a method that even a swordsman would find easy to grasp. Aura users typically use spirit stones to increase their mana. The same principle applies to magic. To familiarize his body with the arcane, he could just absorb a spirit stone engraved with a magic circuit. Leonard was skeptical of this method. He didn't come here to devote himself to magic or anything like that. Esther assured her that, unless he possesses a very strange constitution, her method is the fastest and easiest way to understand the basics firsthand. Besides, she believes it is her duty to guide her junior as a senior member of Aquamarine. If she doesn't do this for Leonard, she's afraid that the girls might come barging into her residence to scream at her again. Any normal person should be able to absorb her spirit stone circuit easily, but Leonard Cardenas is the farthest thing from normal. Based on his pained expression, it was apparent that something had gone terribly wrong. Bits and pieces of translucent mana filled the room. The ground shook and the air was thick with magic. Usually this process doesn't get this intense. Thankfully, the bizarre reaction finally settled down a few moments later. Esther checked on the visibly spent Leonard. Aside from some heavy breathing and leftover pain, he was pretty much okay. The circuit exposure must have awakened something in him. The Cardenas bloodline might be gifted in more than just swordsmanship. Upon analyzing his condition, Esther found that the young man had rewritten the entire spell carved into the spirit stone as if the original were a mistake. Now that he's recovered his composure, he explained how he managed to reinterpret one of the spell circuits to his preference. Scribed in the stone was the simple magic missile. It was supposed to be a basic spell, straightforward and with no room for any improvement. Clearly, Esther was wrong. It would be better to show rather than tell, so Leonard showed his modified magic missile. Truthfully speaking, he judged the spell to be useless due to its egregious inefficiency. After tinkering with the formula, he was able to reshape the missile into the form of a dagger. Esther was truly taken aback. Changing the basic form of a spell, no matter the grade, is something that even a fourth circle mage like her can't do, yet this boy modified 5 at once. Feeling confident and curious, he asked Esther to show him the goods and take her circuits out for a quick look. She doesn't really mind doing so, but she was confused as to why. Leonard simply told her that he could see parts of her that could be improved. After their extensive circuit review session, Leonard and Esther headed toward the tall, mighty Atlantis Magic Tower. Inside the highest office on the highest floor, a man who was analyzing dozens of documents at once by suspending them in the air was flexing his prowess. Some unwanted guests just entered his office to distract him from his work. Jack Russell, Chief Elder of the Atlantis Magic Tower and Mr. Seventh Circle Mage, is a busy man. He has no time for bullshit. As the chief elder's only disciple, Esther just laughed off her master's grumpy reaction, while Leonard politely introduced himself. Outsiders are rarely allowed in Jack's magic tower, so he demanded an explanation as to why a stranger was standing in his office. Esther happily revealed to her master that she had finally reached the 5th circle. Chief Elder Jack was surprised that she was able to break through, given how she'd been stuck in the 4th circle for years. To prove that she had leveled up, Esther conjured up a fire spell. The temperature in the room skyrocketed after she conjured up a more complex version of Fireball. She proudly told her master that she had finally learned how to change the form of her magic according to her will. By compressing and spinning her flames into a disc, she was able to maximize the power of a simple spell. Esther credited Leonard for such an achievement. He was the one who fixed her flawed circuits and gave her pointers. While she was proudly spinning the flames, Leonard gave her another piece of advice: do not use volatile fire magic indoors. Esther had gotten carried away, excited to show off to her master. Her stable control finally slipped. She apologized to her master as she threw the spinning disc of ruinous fire in his direction. Instead of freaking out about the murder disc headed his way, the chief elder was more interested in the boy who touched on the realm of transformation only seen at the 6th circle level. He easily dispelled Esther's flame, dissipating the spinning mess with a snap of a finger. In his eyes, transcending the boundaries of magic without even meaning to is something that can never be achieved without true enlightenment. Leonard might not know it, but he did Esther a favor she can never repay in a single lifetime. Esther likely knew how significant this was, which was why she brought the boy to her master. Without mincing his words, Chief Elder Jack Russell offered to take Leonard in as a direct disciple. For a fledgling mage, there is no greater opportunity than this. Leonard apologized and insisted that he had already decided to walk the path of the sword. Jack knew better than to discourage someone who answers so quickly with full conviction. Still, he was a bit disappointed. In that case, he would like to grant Leonard the same authority as Esther with no strings attached. He will have unlimited access to the tower, its knowledge, magic tools, and resources. All of that combined won't amount to a 7th circle mage's personal guidance, though. The chief will also guarantee a favorable relationship with the Aquamarine Guild going forward. Leonard was glad he wasn't forced to do anything against his will. He thanked the chief elder for being a reasonable man and swore to visit often. A friendship with the magic tower will undoubtedly be a huge advantage for their small party. When Leonard returned to Bermuda's Zephyrus Hall to relay what had happened to the captain, he was met with bombastic reactions. Fran couldn't believe the new recruit would bring them such good luck so soon. The Magic Tower is a massive organization on par with Bermuda and the Union Council. Forming a connection with them is a massive benefit. Changing the subject, Leonard asked Fran about the stacks of paperwork on the table. The documents listed a bunch of names of people that she would like to recruit into the guild. They can't expand operations without enough members after all. Without their ship, they would not have been able to reach B rank in the first place. Leonard asked if they were looking for stronger members to fill up the roster. Naturally, Captain Fran would prefer to have strong crewmates by her side. He pointed out that someone just a few meters away looks like they'd be useful. A man dangles on the ceiling, propped up by a single arrow. He was yelling all sorts of curses towards the supposed half-breed elf bitch that pinned him in such a humiliating position. Stoic and unbothered by the insults, one-eyed Ninian stared down the pathetic insect writhing on the ceiling. Unsatisfied with just one shot, Ninian swiftly unloaded a barrage of multiple arrows to scare the shit out of the miserable bastard. That piece of human garbage was lucky he met her inside Bermuda. Noticing the commotion brought about by her bow, another batch of assholes approached Ninian. They surrounded her from all sides and asked if her salary could cover the fine if she got penalized for her behavior. All they wanted was for her to join the Santa Maria and earn enough to afford her sister's hefty ransom. White Knight Leonard interrupted the Santa Maria goons from bothering the half-elf. Since words won't cut through their thick skulls, he shot a singular arrow with devastating power. Ninian and the Santa Maria goons alike were taken aback by the power behind the attack that came out of nowhere. Still shaken, one-eyed Ninian asked who he was. Leonard introduced himself and the Aquamarine Guild. The bow he used was borrowed from Clara, who was shaking in her boots behind the reception desk. After causing a scene, Leonard formally invited Ninian to join their party. From what he can see, she needs much better company. Ninian was barely listening to him talk. She was still replaying Leonard's shot in her head. It was on a different level compared to her archery, which merely mimics spirit arts. Maybe he could teach her. The Santa Maria goons were salty, so they called Aquamarine a guild on the verge of collapse. They warned Ninian against hitching her wagon to a sinking ship while talking up their own Santa Maria guild. The bald goon was about to name-drop their captain when another bald bastard entered the room to shut his bald ass up. Riddled with scars, bald as a coot, and sporting a singular golden tooth, Captain Christopher Conrad of the Santa Maria doesn't need an introduction from a grunt. The goons who were hassling Ninian earlier are now acting like the most obedient slaves to their boss. According to Leonard's quick assessment, Christopher Conrad might look like a brute, but he's on the verge of the transcendent realm. In a direct fight, he would be at a massive disadvantage. Still, he refused to give up on recruiting Ninian. A skilled archer like her could be Aquamarine's cornerstone for naval combat. Leonard refused to lose a talent like her to a bald fuck like that. If he has to fight to make it happen, then so be it. Back in the day, Ninian always felt uncomfortable when her little sister called her big sis on account of her being a half-breed elf. Little Vivian and Ninian are half-sisters, but unlike her, the little one is a spiritist with talent beyond compare at such a young age. Even so, she was Ninian's only friend and family. One day, their peaceful life was shattered in an instant. Ninian lost one of her eyes in a brutal ambush. The culprits heard about their hidden elf settlement. Vivian was taken and, in desperation, sent a distress signal to her big sis. When Ninian came to her rescue, she was ambushed by the cruel captain of Santa Maria. He dangled a piece of paper stating that little Vivian was now his property. Desperate to get her sister back, one-eyed Ninian agreed to do anything Baldy wanted in return. Captain Conrad laughed at her face. All he wanted was Vivian's talent and spirit arts that Ninian could never hold a candle to. He had no use for a useless one-eyed half-breed mongrel like her. With her own strength, she knew she could never beat the captain, let alone trounce an entire guild. But Vivian was all she had. Up to this day, she freezes at the sight of Santa Maria's despicable captain. While she was frozen in fear, Leonard stepped up to formally challenge the Santa Maria Guild to a duel. He set the stakes to be Vivian's contract cancellation. Marian freaked out upon seeing Leonard take matters into his own hands. She tried to appeal to Fran, arguing that an all-out war with a larger guild is a horrible idea. Leonard argued that this is their best chance to recruit a talented archer and spiritist. The risk is worth the possible reward, so he would like to take charge of this problem. Hearing him talk so confidently swayed Fran's decision to let him go crazy. Leonard walked towards one-eyed Ninian, took her by the hand, and dragged her to their side. Safe to say Captain Baldy's pride was hurt. He seriously considered taking on the blonde-haired punk's challenge. Still, Leonard would have to put up a wager himself if he wanted Vivian's contract. Elf spiritists are equally rare and valuable after all. To make him shut up, Captain Fran stepped in and put up the purchase rights to the Aquamarine on the line. Everyone is aware of the ship's value. In exchange, Fran wanted to add Santa Maria's A-rank exploration rights to the wager for a fair trade. Leonard was surprised that Fran would bring in some backup to support his rashness. Captain Christopher couldn't pass up such a juicy opportunity, so he begrudgingly agreed on one condition. The duelist must be a member of Aquamarine. He can't have some noble girl calling in a swordmaster to fight her battles. He picked the arrogant punk, Leonard, as his opponent in a one-on-one match, with no objections allowed. Baldy walked away, looking forward to the day of the duel. The next day, the whole party gathered at the Atlantis Magic Tower to form a plan. As expected, Marian was still heavily against this decision. Despite how Christopher Conrad looks, he's still a leader of an A-rank guild and a fearsome magic swordsman. In all honesty, Fran confessed that he only backed up Leonard because the bald brute was pissing her off. Marian alleged that even if she teamed up with Ninian, they wouldn't stand a chance against that man. Ashamed of the mess she dragged them into, Ninian apologized. There's no turning back now anyway, so they might as well formulate a strategy. To assure them that everything was under control, Leonard demonstrated his aura blade, shocking everyone in the room. They thought he was just a talented dude at the third stage of the external power realm. Officially, he is listed as a third stage external power realm swordsman. In truth, he just never found a reason to show his true strength. As he is right now, he is very confident in his odds to beat Conrad. Seeing his aura blade in person, Fran's confidence soared. As far as the scouting reports are concerned, they know for sure that Baldy is not at the level of a swordmaster yet. Still, they have to consider that man's fighting style as a magic swordsman. Leonard needs a way to counter both magic and sword. Entering the room after overhearing their conversation, Chief Elder Jack Russell, alongside Esther, chuckled. He assured the ladies that no random captain can be more of a genius than Leonard when it comes to the arcane. Jack sat his ass down and listened to the rundown of the situation intently. Leonard asked Jack to act as the witness to the upcoming duel. The stakes are high with the guild's ship on the line. Leonard wanted some insurance that foul play won't fly. It was a simple enough request, one that the chief elder agreed to since Leonard helped his disciple break through. Besides, Jack does not expect the man behind the man to play fair either. While Aquamarine Guild was meeting with the chief elder, Captain Conrad was kneeling before Pablo L. Orlando Peterson, leader of the A-rank Moby Dick Party and member of the Atlantis Union Council. The big dog heard the news and wanted to jump in on the perfect chance to seize the precious ship. To ensure that Conrad can deliver, Councilman Pablo gave Baldy a pill that will grant power beyond a swordmaster for a short time. At first, Conrad was against the idea of doping against a mere brat that he could take down in an instant, but he misinterpreted the councilman's words. Pablo wasn't asking for a favor here. This is an order. Terrified of one of the most powerful men in Atlantis, Conrad profusely apologized. Pablo noticed how confident the Aquamarine Guild was acting. He refuses to let an opportunity to seize the ship slip away, even if it means forcing the pill down Conrad's throat. With a crazy look in his eyes, the captain of Santa Maria vowed to deliver. He will crush that arrogant punk by any means necessary. The day of the duel swiftly arrived. To the locals of Atlantis, the Bermuda Grand Auditorium is just an event hall, but in reality, it's a no-holds-barred combat arena. Those who caught wind of the upcoming duel filled up the seats, discussing how much money they put down on who's going to win. The consensus all around overwhelmingly favors Captain Conrad. As far as the public knows, the challenger is just some brat with a little bit of potential. The outcome is already decided in their minds. Fran, Marion, and Esther were sitting in the front row, wearing disguises and failing to blend in. Once the arena was filled, the fighters were introduced. The favorite to win is the captain of Santa Maria, Christopher Conrad. On the opposing side, a fresh recruit from Aquamarine, Leonard. The announcer did a good job of hyping up the crowd. With so much on the line, a duel like this requires an authoritative witness. Lord Jack Russell, Chief Elder of the Magic Tower, will be taking on that role. Before the fight, the Aquamarine ladies cooked up an insane gamble. They planned to bet all of their assets on the duel under Esther's name. In this situation, she's the only one Fran can trust. This is their chance to strike it rich and multiply the guild's fund. Esther believes in Leonard's strength, but she still feels iffy about the idea of gambling everything they have in one go. Fran predicted that the crowd would heavily bet on Conrad, since there's far less information about a fresh recruit like Leonard in the party registry than about an established captain. Basically, they are betting against the public with a long shot. The betting odds will be heavily skewed. Leonard assured Esther that with the sword provided by the Magic Tower, there's no chance that he'll lose. He was 100% on board with the betting plan. In his mind, they are basically making free money. With every single cent to their name on the line, the announcer officially kicked off the duel. From the start, Conrad acted like a disrespectful son of a gun, petting Leonard's head like a small animal while warning him that killing someone in this arena is not a crime. Leonard maintained his composure and asked if Baldy was scared. It was a highly effective ragebait method designed to hit Conrad's fragile ego. For starters, Captain Conrad conjured several fireballs hovering around him. As soon as he started pelting the challenger with explosive flames, Leonard showed some fancy footwork to avoid getting burned. Leonard took the balls seriously. They were conjured by a fifth circle mage after all. Thankfully, he has the borrowed sword from the Magic Tower to deal with spells. It's a top-grade artifact that allows him to imbue magic into the blade. To counter the fiery barrage, he commanded the wind to blow them all away. Wide-eyed in shock, Conrad thought Leonard was a magic swordsman like him. Taking advantage of that brief surprise, Leonard landed back on the ground and bum-rushed his enemy. The problem with facing a magic swordsman is their versatility. He was able to close the gap and seal the long-ranged magic attacks, but Conrad was no slouch in close combat either. Leonard's well-timed attack was halted by a rock wall magically shaped for defense. Conrad caught him slipping and immediately capitalized on his lack of foothold by conjuring little black holes on his landing spot. No matter how fast he might be, no one can defy gravity. Stuck in place, Leonard was precariously open for Conrad's electric palm. The young man gritted his teeth while his brain was working overtime to find a way out. Lightning struck the arena, enveloping both combatants and obscuring the spectator's view. When the electrically charged cover died down, Captain Conrad was revealed to have sustained a cut across his eye, the same eye that he took from Ninian. Leonard was able to sneak in a slash and kick to the face despite being electrocuted. The only damage he sustained was on his shirt. That bald bastard tried to kill him, and all it did was undress him partially. Leonard continued stomping on Baldy's face, not letting him get a moment to breathe. When he finally let up and repositioned, Captain Conrad knew what he needed to do next. Frankly, Leonard was insulted that a magic swordsman wouldn't even draw his sword in a fight against him. He was just punishing Conrad's arrogance. It took the crooked captain mere moments to understand that he must rely on Councilman Pablo's pill for this fight. He popped that little black sphere into his mouth and grimaced at its instantaneous and painful effect. Once the sinister drug entered his system, the enhancements were immediately apparent. Looking like a bald, roided-up monster, he roared threats at Leonard's life. By the challenger's estimate, Conrad's abnormally massive surge of power pushed the captain on par with a swordmaster in an instant. Leonard already suspected that the crooked captain wouldn't play fair. He was prepared to deal with whatever secret weapon Conrad had in store for him. The speed boost allowed big body Conrad to home in on his target like a speeding rocket. He was working his ass off in order to catch the slippery Leonard to no avail. Conrad was bleeding from his open wounds and growing increasingly more infuriated by the second. He swung his great sword around like it weighed nothing. Still, topless Leonard nonchalantly avoided every attempt to make him bleed. All the dodging ended up with him stuck in midair with no way to pivot. Conrad sneered, believing that he had finally got that arrogant punk dead to rights. Finally, he showed his final trump card by channeling every bit of energy he could spare into his great sword. Seeing Baldy use an aura blade made Leonard smirk. Instead of relying on fancy footwork and precise body movements, he chose to make the next bout a clash of aura blades. The resulting impact from their collision shook the entire arena. As soon as their blades touched, Conrad struggled to keep a steady hold of his blade. He never would have expected that someone as young as Leonard would have the ability to use Aura Blade, a complicated ability that requires him to use an illegal drug to access. As expected, Captain Christopher Conrad's fake power was no match for a dragon's technique. He was diced up and broken by the time he slumped back on the floor. When the dust settled and the obvious victor emerged, one man sitting in the front row protested that the fight was a scam. Carmen, the manager of Iolus A-Rank Hall in Bermuda, was very vocal about his demand to void the result of the match, believing that there was no way a magic swordsman who mastered the Aura Blade could lose to an unknown brat. Obviously, he was being salty due to his involvement in rigging the fight through the use of illegal drugs and still losing. If the decision stands, his position in Bermuda is finished. Thankfully, Chief Elder Jack Russell was there to shut the measly manager up. Since Carmen wanted to void the results, he was practically suggesting that the Chief Elder's notarized final call should be disregarded. Jack turned to the announcer and dared him to side with that fool who calls himself manager. Carmen stood down and apologized for being so reckless with his mouth as Jack stared him down. Chief Elder was impressed that everything played out exactly as that kid, Leonard, had calculated. His prediction was accurate down to the people who would protest the results. With the W officially secured, Chief Elder Jack's duty was fulfilled. Now it's up to Leonard to wrap this whole thing up neatly. Fortunately, it was smooth sailing after the fight. The proposal went through, and Santa Maria's A-Rank exploration rights were transferred to Aquamarine. There are still some conditions to fulfill before they're officially recognized as an A-Rank guild, but it's all good. They got a massive payout from the duel. They made so much money that they don't have to worry about finances for a long time. Fran wholeheartedly thanked Leonard for turning things around for the guild, but he was just happy to be of service. Vivian was saved from her predatory contract, and Ninian was officially freed from the claws of the Santa Maria Guild. The prodigious wind spirit elementalist does not know how to express her gratitude to Leonard just yet, but she'll figure something out. Leonard coldly claimed their interests simply aligned, so the sisters could pay him back by becoming full-time members of Aquamarine under Francis's captaincy. Ninian still felt uncomfortable and wanted to repay him in other ways, but Captain Fran believes that comrades don't need to worry about such things. With introductions and inventory out of the way, Fran tasked Marion with showing the girls to their rooms. Out on the deck and bathed in moonlight, Fran watched the waves as the ship sailed forth. Leonard quietly approached her and asked if she had sent everyone back to their room early because of him. Fran wanted to talk with him in private about the reason why she so desperately wanted to reach A-Rank. Though he has a pretty good idea why, he doesn't really know about her history at all. Tonight, Fran will open her heart and tell her story to another person. It all started 8 long years ago, at the Union Council. Back then, the Council's biggest problem was the unattended rifts in the 5th Sea Zone. Njord, the previous captain and leader of Aquamarine Guild, tried to warn his fellow councilmen that they are headed to the same fate as the demonic lands of that distant continent, utterly contaminated by otherworldly energy. The biggest opposition to his alarmist stance was none other than Pablo L. Orlando Peterson, who believed that the rifts were under strict control and management. He claimed that there won't be any major issues for at least the next 30 years. As their man in the front lines, Njord should know better than anyone. Pablo's projections would only be feasible if nothing unexpected happened for the next 3 decades. The corrupt councilman was confident that they could handle anything the rifts threw at them. Besides, more rifts mean more chances to secure otherworldly byproducts. Frustrated by the lack of urgency, Njord grabbed Pablo by his collar and called him out in front of their fellow councilmen for ignoring imminent danger for the sake of harvesting some byproducts. Pablo reminded him that those byproducts he mentioned are what made Atlantis a city of wealth in the first place. When he put the decision to a vote, the other council members chose Pablo's side as expected. The decision was made even after all the warnings. Disillusioned and exasperated, Captain Njord slammed the round table. He cursed at his fellow council members for being blinded by greed and profit. Since he could no longer count on other A-rank parties to help, Njord took it upon himself to solve the impending problem. He boldly announced that the Aquamarine Guild would seal every last rift surrounding Atlantis. His loyal crewmen followed him wholeheartedly. The Aquamarine ship sailed the high seas, weathering every challenge the waters threw at it. Back then, the Aquamarine Guild's roster was stacked with talent. They had 1 7th Circle Mage and 3 Masters of the Transcendental Realm as their main attack force. Led by their commander, the Spirit Knight Njord, they sailed and sealed 4 rifts in less than a month, an unprecedented record. The Union Council kept sending him messages, begging him to return to the mainland. While they were focused on closing dangerous rifts, the political atmosphere in Atlantis had grown worse. It doesn't help that he was basically taking jobs away from other adventurers sailing the seas. At that time, Njord promised to head back home once they sealed the biggest rift out there, Charybdis. The Aquamarine braved the troubled waters and headed straight for the Eye of Charybdis. Interrupting Fran's story, Leonard asked whether something had gone wrong on Njord's expedition. Fran answered that it was quite the opposite. The Aquamarine attack force was just too strong back then. They easily cleared the biggest rift in the sea without casualties. Leaving the corpse of a behemoth rotting on the water's surface, they headed back home. Njord had chilled out a great deal, knowing that the eradication of Charybdis would significantly delay the corruption of his homeland. He was aware that many people would give him a lecture when they returned, but he was satisfied overall. It took the attack force a whole week to close out their biggest challenge yet. Njord was more worried that his precious daughter might have grown mad at him. Back then, little Fran was always aboard the aquamarine ship, protected by her bodyguard, Marion. On the day that they were supposed to sail back home, it happened. In the middle of nowhere, something massive had surfaced right behind the aquamarine. It was Councilman Pablo's warship, the Moby Dick. Njord was bamboozled. He realized that this surprise attack was Pablo's plan from the very beginning. Alerted by the imminent threat of a warship straddling their poop deck, Marion held on to Fran tightly. Njord drew his blade and tasked the loyal bodyguard to take his daughter and the ship back to the docks at full speed. Once they make it back to Atlantis, even Pablo won't dare to pull such a daring stunt out in the open. Straight out of their exhausting Charybdis expedition, Aquamarine's attack force engaged Moby Dick in combat. Inside the comfort of his state-of-the-art warship, Councilman Pablo scoffed at their foolish efforts. He ordered his crew to break Aquamarine's will to fight until there's nothing left. The last thing Fran heard coming out of her father's mouth was a declaration that Aquamarine's honor will live on, even if he dies. With only Marion and Fran on board, the Aquamarine sailed back to Atlantis while the attack force held Moby Dick in place. That was how Fran came to inherit her father's title and the ship. That is how she can't afford to give up. Since she was just a little girl, she was making an enemy of Atlantis itself. After sharing her story, Fran gave Leonard a chance to back out and leave anytime he wanted. Leonard refused to take her up on that offer. As long as he gets to cross swords with strong opponents, he would gladly make an enemy of an entire island. It would just be a bonus if his sword gets to cut down scumbags who don't deserve mercy. Fran was taken aback by his conviction. With her face perfectly lit by the bright moonlight, she laughed. On that night, the captain and her bodyguard made a pact to go all the way together.